Hello, everybody. It is Thursday, so welcome back to Reconnected. And this week, I don't even know how to intro this. I'm flabbergasted that Howard said yes. Honored that you're here. Mr. Howard S. Berger is our esteemed guest tonight. Howard, thank you for doing this.
Oh, are you kidding?
I am. I'm very, very
No, I
sincere.
appreciate it. It's wonderful. Thank you. It's great to be here.
This is wild. Like, you are one of the people that I've just respected and loved talking to the most throughout this entire run. So it's like surreal.
Oh, you.
Well, and
right back.
do I remember right? Is this your first live thing that you've done?
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm. if I stay alive, yeah. Oh, you mean live? Like, I mean like breathing. Yeah, no, yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Live meaning we have a bunch of people watching us already, and we got certain people like we got Mr. Flickering Waves who says, "Hello, Ryan, Howard, and chat. Enjoyed the interview with Ryan and Howard. Looking forward to
cool.
tonight's discussion." We got some people excited about 1971. We're going to be talking about that after we go through all the announcements. And to sort of lead into that, you mentioned 1971, and I was like, I love the 70s, but I feel like this is going to be easy to get a top 5. This was one of the hardest lists I have ever made for this show. I literally have 15 right now, and I feel like it's going to be in flux until we actually start.
No, nobody's done 1971 yet.
Nope, and we've only done maybe one other year. In fact, we may not have even done one of the years yet.
Oh, okay.
That's always like the backup idea, and people always view it as a little difficult to approach as a topic.
See, not for me. That's my whole life. That's how I know. That's how I remember my life is through the years of films that I saw.
Right.
No, I no. I mean, it's a crazy idea anyway. But I mean, like for me, honestly, every year has something amazing to it. There's something, there's always something great. But it just in terms of me, I'm just so rooted in my childhood that I remember things in terms of like the summer, like if the summer was broiling, baking, and someone in my family would take, either the whole family would go see something, or it would be like my grandmother and my mom. So that's like for me, that's what I remember. I remember the movies. Either I saw it on TV or if I saw them in the theater. So that's like for sure. I know you throw a name at me, a year at me, and I'll know where I was. I may not remember exactly how old I am because I was born in December, so I keep forgetting that whether I'm like a year younger or a year older. I don't think So I may get my age wrong by a year, give or take. But usually for me, from like 1967 to 73, I could almost say is like that's for me the big formative thing. But I remember seeing stuff on my parents' laps when I was I discussed this when I was like a postnatal. So I really but those years 67 to 73, I could just to the rest of my life just keep talking about those years are just the greatest, the most exciting things. Don't forget these were years where movies, and some people only know this maybe through a retro theater or something. Movies came out, and whether they were single or double features or triple features, they played in one theater.
Yeah.
So when a new movie came out, they play in one theater, and you'd have to go to that theater to see that particular movie for however long they decided it was going to be there. So that was exciting. Was which theater it's going to be at. Are you going to go? I mean, like these are all things that definitely electrify the memory of and also like another thing I love is concession stands, like the soda machines. Like sometimes they had like soda machines with just like a wax cup, and the shaved ice would come down to a wax cup, and you drink it, and it's like and the syrup and everything. I mean, so that was kind of cool. They don't have that anymore. I mean, now it's like the stupid things with the
Dude McMahon in our chat wants to know, how old were both of us in 1971? Are you okay sharing that?
I was like around between 5 and 6.
and I was negative 16.
You were just an idea, a worry in maybe both of your parents' minds at some point.
I
Or were
think
they not married in like 1980 or something?
my mom in 1971 was only like 3 or
There
4.
you go.
So
There you go.
yeah, I'm not
It
even
happens.
a thought.
It happens.
I'm curious because right before we went live, you and I were talking about how being a video essayist and editor and writer that you've been for a lot of this time, before our interview together, you had not gotten like major amounts of feedback on a lot of that from the public. I don't know if you saw this chat come through on your side, but Paul Berryman says, since watching your interview with Howard, it's changed how I approach watching films and have engaged with and enjoyed films so much more. Looking forward to this today.
That's awesome. You're in my will, Paul. It's not worth anything, but you're in it. I appreciate that. That's really, that's how I make friends. It's like when people say that, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm there. That's really what it's. I'm glad. That's good. I mean, it's all about enjoying films more, not enjoying some films sometimes, or or under certain your specific conditions or criteria. I mean, it's like, and it's still weird. People don't get that when I try and discuss this with them, is that I don't care about what your tolerances are or what your vision for an expectation was. I don't care. I was always like that. I never cared. What I do care about, if someone says, oh, this director repeats these sort of ideas, or how they work, these guys always work together, and you could see like the set designer does this always and he always does that, and it's metaphoric and blah, blah, blah. Like, not academic, but I definitely like that. Just an idea gets me off. I don't want to know that I can only talk about some things with this one person, or if they say something like, fight me, I hated this film, fight me. No, but I'll just delete you off my thread. It's like, I don't want to. I'm not interested. You're a brick wall. It's almost always an attention stealing device, at least from what I've encountered. I'm sure people just innocently just want to talk about opinion, but why would they assume that I care what they hate? Unless they're giving me warning signs that they're never going to change, or they're never going to open their mind, and I can't discuss. There's even some people who, or even they're supposedly open-minded and they discuss cinema, but they'll ridicule it in my mind. I wouldn't say obvious, but readings like subtextual reading, like that's part of the great fun of it. I just did a thing for Film Masters. I just did a piece that they were wonderful letting me do on Roger Corman's The Terror, and me and my Destructible Man partner, we have a defunct blog for now. It's coming back, but we've been sort of replacing the blog with like doing video essays, like we did the Dracula versus Frankenstein piece, which was the first one we did on the deconstruction of the movie Dracula versus Al Adamson's Dracula versus Frankenstein, when it was, people ridiculed it for decades, and we never did. I mean, obviously there's some ulterior camp value. I mean, that's right, within the fabric of the movie, but it's also very appreciative. And there's dummy deaths in this thing, and for us, we notice dummy deaths. We see trickle effects, both thematic and also visual, and it was too consistent in this movie. I mean, it was like Al and Sam Sherman must have called us in 1970 or 69 and said, can we consult you on this? It's like it totally fit in our paradigm of how we analyze movies using dummy deaths. And dummy deaths is in the fabric of cinema from the very first edit. So, it's to us, it's very, important that people start to understand movies are beyond their taste or opinion. And there's other ways of looking at film or reading film, and it's so much more fun than just sitting there going that I will never like this movie because it wasn't what I wanted, or I don't like these kind of movies because they're stupid, or the people who like them are stupid and that's why they're made. There's this labyrinth of hostility, and then antagonism and condescension. I'm just not into it. I have a filter. I just will delete you off my wall if on Facebook or whatever. I have no compunctions. It's like I posted. I said, you're negative, you're gone, and I'll allow certain things. Like if I want to make it, if I want to make a case out of somebody, I'll let them embarrass themselves.
Right.
But I just like, I'm so happy that people actually care about that, or and you're seeing, like, it's great. They're actually changing their minds about the way they think they've been looking at movies. That says a lot.
Yeah.
That puts you in high mensch territory as far as I'm concerned, because now you're caring about the movies. I used to have discussions when he was on Facebook, Roger Ebert. I said, how do you say you love movies when you have at least 2 books that are called "I hate this movie"? I mean, like, you ruin people's careers by going out and having a dog of the week. I mean, like, I just tune you guys out when I was like 11 years old. I was tuning them out. And if people ever look, I have them still. I used to buy, or my mom used to get them for me religiously, every new edition of the Leonard Maltin or the Stephen Schuer Movies on TV guide. Now, Stephen Schuer, his books were just like, boy, oh boy, the 1-star ratings went crazy. And I know there was a lot of moral issues when they were written. Sure. I mean, like, Dirty Harry got like 1-star, bullet. I mean, yeah, I understand, because it's a fascist, it's a scary, at the time, a scary fascist reaction to, law. So, I mean, it was, so I totally get that. But at the same time, there are, if you read some of those initial capsules, they're really kind of damning altogether. And I'm like, well, but what's the filmmaking about? What's the film about? What's the language they're using? How are they conveying this? I mean, it's still fascinating whether or not morally I, can, say it's not an alignment with my own soul, but as a director. And, also, directors don't always have the power. Don Siegel didn't quite have the power to own up that maybe that wasn't his total political bent, although he definitely showed signs of changing. You watch Coogan's Bluff again, but though you're dealing again with Clint Eastwood, and the two of them would just sit on the floor like kids, putting the story together, putting the scripts together, the different versions. So, a director doesn't always cater to his own belief systems. He's a lot, sometimes, especially in that era, that's their job,
Right.
and they used their skill sets, but they also had to totally placate their star and things like that. So, to give it 1 star, I don't even, on Letterboxd, I don't even give star ratings. I only talk about films that I can understand or that I want to sort of spark discussion about. But I don't even put a star rating to things like that. So I just appreciate when people, come out and they say things like, oh my God, I look at it differently. So that's just, I feel great, because, after a while you just feel like you're totally alone. Who can I discuss this stuff with? Which is why I love, being here with you, because you do. I mean, and you get it. I mean, like, you have good things to say about things. You don't want to rewrite the movie. I mean, and everybody has that in them. I mean, of course, right, especially if you're creative. But to also judge the film, and damn it, I wouldn't be here. That I would just rather not. And I do that with, commentaries too. If I'm working with someone on a commentary, I tell them straight out, if I don't want to hear criticism, I don't want to hear what ifs, I don't want to hear failed expectations. I'll walk in the middle of the session. I have no interest. I can't participate with that. I can't work off of that. So that's sort of a thing that, but luckily everyone that I work with either complies or agrees. So, it's not really in the forefront of our thinking. It makes it very easy.
Well, I agree. You and I are very much on the same page for a lot of that. It's not fun for me to sit here, especially for like an hour-long show, to talk about just terrible movies. I'm not the kind of person.
Have you had that? You don't have to give names, but I mean, have you had that happen? Or?
I mean, there's been certain ones that people are, they're really not a fan of the movie, and they'll share that, and maybe a couple of reasons, but there's never any super long diatribes or anything, thankfully.
That's fair. I mean, yeah.
normally in this part, we talk about a couple pickups or recent watches. Is there anything that you've picked up recently you want to share with everybody, or something that you've watched that's amazing that you're not working on?
Oh, I haven't. I don't think I've watched a film that I wasn't working on for months now.
Right.
But there must have been something. Well, hold on. Let me think. Of course, there has to be some things.
Well, while you think on that, I will
Oh,
share.
no.
I got a gift from one of the fans of the channel this week. One of our
Wow.
patrons sent in a book that he wrote. This is the Fright File, and
Oh,
this is
cool.
from Mr. Dustin Putman, who is in the chat right now.
Great
I
cover.
literally just opened this right before going live. Had no idea what it was going to be. Dustin, this is amazing. He signed this and everything. This is a 10-year anniversary edition. This is incredible. I'm absolutely going to love this. I flipped through it. It looks great. Really wonderful picture of Dustin on the back. This is a great gift,
Go
Dustin.
put
So
that
thank you
out.
very much.
Who's the
It
publisher?
is Haunted Sideshow Press.
Looks good.
Yeah, it feels
Textured
wonderful.
cover. I gotta say, yeah, that looks awesome. Great cover.
It's got one of those nice soft matte covers and everything.
And it's not cheeseball cover either. It doesn't sell it
No.
short. I think it looks classy. I like that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
genuinely interesting, super
cool.
engaging. This is incredible. Yeah, can't
I'd
wait
love
to
to get
dive
my
into it.
copy of that, Dustin. No, I'm just kidding. Of course you can.
Dustin's now going to message me
I'd
to
read
ask
it.
for your address, probably.
No, I'll give it to you myself. No, it looks really good though.
It really does. So did you think of anything that you've watched recently?
Oh, there has to be. Jog my memory. What would I have watched? Oh, yes. I started watching. I saw Zoo Warriors: The Magic Mountain. I have all
Oh,
these.
nice.
Yeah, it was. I
I've
have
still
like
not seen that one.
I have like 10 different incarnations of that thing from VHS straight through all different types of like VCD
Right.
and DVDs. And I just never watched it. But I remember, when I'm trying to think when it was. Was it the 90s? I can't even remember anymore. It was maybe the early 90s or mid 90s when uh, the Incredibly Strange Film Show from England started doing stuff, and I knew about these movies, but I just never, I was just watching so much stuff. Always, me and my Destructible Man partner Kevin Marr, he would just come out. We would just watch stuff. I mean, like 50 films in like a 4-day weekend. It's like just watch from morning to night with just maybe an occasional food break, or we would sleep through some of them. Whatever, we'd kick each other, wake up, watch this stuff. And I had so many of these wonderful like Choi Hark films, and all that, that whole area, Jackie Chan. We would go into the city to see them in New York City at the Sun Sing or the Music Palace, I think it was. And so occasionally we would go in and meet friends and actually go see them, in the theater. But I don't know, the ones that it seems like the ones that I'd be most interested in, like all the Hopping Vampire films, Mr. Vampire series.
Yeah.
I just never, I had them all over and over and over again. I quadrupled, octuple dipped. I mean, a lot of people do. I never watched them. So I did. I sat down and I started watching them, when I could. So I watched Zoo, and I was, I mean, everything, and especially now it's like 30 years later or whatever. Yeah. Oh, and I had seen it before and loved it, but I did watch it back to back with that. I watched Ringo Lam's Burning Paradise, which I actually think I saw projected. That is priority number one as far as I'm concerned.
Wild movie.
That's an insane film, and it's so beautifully done. I don't know. I just don't know how these guys, like, what kind of vitamin shots they were taking or how they were getting to sleep at night. I don't think that's beyond exhaustion. I don't know what they did, but boy, oh boy. And that's a class act. That's really a wild, wild film, So those were pretty intense. Zoo was great. And I watched, a Chinese Ghost Story.
I've been meaning to watch that. I think I have the Chinese release of all three of those, and I need to put them in.
Yeah, I've been getting the Eureka when Eureka would put them out in England, or 88 Films, company I have not done anything for yet, and I would love to. Guys, let's say hi. No, they're great. I mean, their extras are really pretty potent. They're very really well. But Eureka's does a great job. So I got those. Occasionally, I'll get whatever Hong Kong versions if they're not. I kind of try and do research where I found that. Let me see. Oh, hey, cool beans. You count Yorga Vampire. Yes, awesome. I'm glad people get time to watch stuff. I couldn't recommend those more. I mean, seriously, Chinese Ghost Story, they all exceeded my expectations,
Nice.
Which is great because I try not to go in with any, but you feel like a fool because you've owned them for 35 years and you just never got around. It's almost embarrassing,
Right.
Those were really exceptional, and those got it's good because they did sort of, it's like getting a dose of oxygen. You sort of clear your brain, palate cleanser, right? That you clear your brain because doing commentary or video essay after commentary and video essay, your brain's going to explode because I don't even do these things with a lot of I try not to if I can't avoid like the Wikipedia syndrome. Everyone's going to have looked at that stuff. I try and figure out what the movie's about. Right. I try and figure out the trajectory of the director or the crew or the writers or whatever, and over their careers, and see how this fits in. So after a while, my brain just wants to blow apart, And so these were really perfect. Burning Paradise still. If no one hasn't seen that one yet, seriously, just like whatever. I think. I don't want to get it wrong. I think Vinegar Syndrome did a great version of it, and I think it's Eureka did another version of it in England, and I would have to say both versions are great, are worth getting, because you'll want to watch it a second time anyway. But the extras are totally different, and the actual look of the film is kind of different on both of them too. So I had no complaints either one of them. So those are really just scrumptious,
Well, the extras is probably a good time to bring up another topic of conversation. When we posted about the conversation tonight, we posted that we were going to be going over the announcements, 1971 in film, and then sort of a special announcement. And for this special announcement, we actually have another friend that we're going to bring on, Dr. Will Dodson. Hey, Will's back. Hi, Will.
Get that water on him.
Will has been hanging out in the rafters waiting to talk about this.
What's up, Doc?
Hey.
We've got something fun to share. So I am going to share a picture up on the screen and read something to everybody. Here is this. And I'm going to say that Someone's Favorite Productions is thrilled to announce its official launch. Founded by Mr. Ryan Verrill and Dr. Will Dodson, Someone's Favorite Productions is dedicated to creating and curating exceptional extra features for boutique Blu-ray releases. With a wide array of backgrounds and skills, including academic research and publication, audio-video production and editing, and high-quality industry interviews, we are passionate about enhancing the magic of physical media for every kind of film fan. We understand that the importance of supplementary content in elevating the viewing experience and believe that boutique Blu-ray companies deserve the finest features to complement their releases. Someone's Favorite Productions will provide exclusive, high-quality content that engages and entertains collectors, cinephiles, and casual fans alike. The name comes from a common refrain from this very show: every film has been someone's favorite film. The company's mission is to transform ordinary movie nights into extraordinary cinematic adventures, making every release someone's favorite. So the reason why we wanted to share this tonight, with Howard being here, let's go through some of this. Some key features of Someone's Favorite Productions will be academic quality. We write and produce deeply researched audio commentaries and visual essays that are accessible, informative, and entertaining for experts and casual fans alike. Customized features, like Someone's Favorite Productions, will work closely with boutique Blu-ray companies to tailor-make features that explore each film's themes, artistic visions, production histories, and fandoms, and create immersive viewing experiences. And this is the real reason for Howard here, is diverse talent. In addition to the film expertise of Dr. Dodson and Mr. Verrill, Someone's Favorite features a collaborative stable of collaborative stable of contributors whose individual backgrounds and talents can be matched with specific projects. Confirmed talent include writer and director Howard S. Berger, writer and host of the Unsung Horrors podcast Erica Schultz, and writer, director, festival programmer, and podcast host Billy Ray Bruton. We will also provide exclusive interviews with filmmakers, actors, and industry experts that provide viewers with insight into the creative process, production, and distribution histories, and behind-the-scenes anecdotes. Someone's Favorite Productions is currently in talks with several boutique Blu-ray companies and will announce its first features in the coming weeks. I've been sprinkling out some information about the things that I've been editing over the last couple of weeks, and that is the first insight into what we've been doing. But there is another wing to this. Beyond special features made for discs, Someone's Favorite Productions will offer multiple production services, including brand consulting, social media management, and digital platforms to showcase films and releases. The inaugural platform will be a podcast hosted by me. And let me bring up another picture on here because this is such a neat picture. And I love that we're going to do this. The first podcast will be Cinetrauma, hosted by myself and Howard S. Berger. This is such an exciting thing, and I can't wait to do it. Cinetrauma will showcase interviews that discuss how a film or films have helped shape individuals' emotional lives. Once this podcast is launched, it will be accompanied by a network of varied podcasts about film and film collecting. More details to come in the near future. And that is that.
Well, that I'm looking forward to, because everything I love now as an adult that I saw in 1971 was because I was emotionally destroyed by all these films. And I think it's a, what do I always say? What breaks you makes you. So it's like I really think this is going to be a very interesting exploration, especially when we get guests in here. I think that's you're really going to find out what where someone comes from. That's great. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, Carol.
My first conversation with Howard went and posted on Facebook right after that the interview was like the best therapy possible. And ever since then, we have been talking so much and eager to share this with everybody. Before we let Will go, Will, you want to share anything about this or any thoughts?
What am I allowed to say?
You know what you're allowed to say.
Well, I can say that we have recorded commentaries for the entire filmography of Steven Spielberg.
Which is cool.
I wish that were the case, because Will would have been miserable.
No.
See, I got to work on you.
Yeah. No, I could find the good in anything.
Good. That's why it's called Someone's Favorite. No, we revealed last Friday in a video that Will was here in Missouri with me just 2 weekends ago. And Will was here for work. We spent...
Talk about Cinetrauma. Let me tell the audience what happened. Should I do it? All right, yeah. So
either that, or you could use it as a lead-in to say we're going to talk about it in the first week of October.
Give him give it a little treat.
Well, I don't.
Is someone going to sue you?
I'll say this: I've never had any reason to go to Missouri, and and so on my first trip, I get into this aeroplane, and we get about 30,000 feet in the air, and we're about halfway there, and all of a sudden I heard this sound like metal on metal. I was like, oh, that's not good. And then I smelled this smell like burning metal. I was like, that's really not good. And then I heard, well, I didn't really hear it, but I saw this orange flash. And I looked out the window and saw an engine had exploded. Like, that's definitely not good. And then I saw all the flight attendants go really fast up the aisle. And I was like, that's definitely.
And then you look out the window and all of them are like they're on the wing holding, taping.
Pretty much. I've never felt more like William Shatner in my life.
Oh my
thankfully,
God. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, as you can tell, this is not a seance. I did make it. We eventually got there, and yes, we spent a weekend doing a lot of work, and I was a diva. I can say that. Total diva. I discovered levels of divaness in myself that I did not know I had, and I knew I had some. So we'll give more details when we're able to, but I have to say it was an enjoyable time. For the most part, I mean, Jeremy was there. But other than that, it was great. So I really enjoyed it. So happy to be a part of this venture. And I hope that everyone listening recognizes what I'm sure they already know, that Ryan is a great connector, as the name attests, and he's pulled together an unbelievable group of people and me.
I am thrilled.
Give him his fish now.
To have everybody that is a
Good
part
job.
of this. Yeah, this has been amazing. So thank you guys for doing this, and can't wait to see what's in the future and to see everybody's reaction, because there's a lot of stuff already done, already turned into labels, and more to come. Next time Will is on the show in October, we will discuss more.
I still want to redo a couple things.
You're so self-conscious, Will.
No, I just wanted to make you squirm.
Anyways, thanks for hanging out tonight, Will. We'll tell the rest of Will's death-defying story in October and go through some more details, and we'll see you then.
Oh, yeah. Have a good show, guys.
Have a good night, Will. Good luck on your work.
Nice meeting you, bud. Glad you're here.
So Cinetrauma, that's coming soon.
Yeah. That's my that's my life. That's my whole life. I can't wait till we talk about Cassandra Crossing. That's where I want to go. I want to go with some of these things. I want to hear what screwed people up. I mean, you automatically find out so much about somebody, through their personal, triggers, especially when they were little. It doesn't always happen when they're when you're younger either. There's sort of lifelong thing. So yeah, no, it's going to be sort of like one of those endless topics that you talk to some people and you go, "What's your favorite movies?" And they you're going to ask me, and I'm just going to tell you all the horrors that I experienced before I even skinned a knee. I was like, I didn't even know what that was, and but some of these movies for a good few years, for me, I couldn't even utter their title without Cassandra Crossing was one of them. I was just so a series of traumatic experiences in that, and I definitely came out the other side. And now of course I'll defend the film to the death. That movie, a good man. Edgy 19, yeah. I saw it in the theater too. Opening night, and not prepared. I was not prepared. So, but things like that are they're just great triggers. And 1971, which we'll talk about, is a lot of them for me. So
well, I mean, that's a good cue too. Maybe we should get into these announcements so we can really go into 1971 here soon. Let's begin. We got our first announcement this week was from MVD Rewind. December 12th, we are getting Mondo, New York from 1988. This is going to have a new 2K transfer in there, and then a whole bunch of archival interviews. We got an interview with Joe Coleman, interview with Joey Arias, interview with Shauna Lameister. I don't know how to say that last name. Interview with the producer, Stuart Shapiro. But then the big thing, a soundtrack CD, which is pretty dang rare for MVD Rewind, and an 18-page booklet. I've never seen Mondo, New York. Have you seen this one? I'm sure you have.
I saw it when it came out. Yeah. Saw it in New York City. Yeah.
How is this one?
It's fun. I mean, it's definitely a time capsule. It's it's exactly what it's supposed to be. But there's some pretty funny things. It's one of those movies that I kind of wouldn't want to know too much before going in. I mean, but I just think it's a fun film, really fun movie. But it was part of the zeitgeist back in that era. And you go to New York City, and of course you're going to go see Mondo, New York, and it's all these personalities that were sort of definitely kind of hovering around the fringe back then, and it was definitely a video store staple too when it made the move to video. That was when like Troma was really going big too. It was like at that time where you had like Toxic Avenger and things like Surf Nazis Must Die in theaters. So that's in the city, that's Saturday night. That's the sort of vibe. But yeah, it's a fun movie. It's a worthy release. What they did was, it seems like it's a lot of care put in.
Yeah, especially like a booklet and a CD is pretty rare from MVD Rewind.
Well, it definitely, it's a movie that it's a historic film now. So so just watch it and think that's I mean, it's really it definitely reflects a certain era that only happens once, so it's this if anything, this provides context. I love when there's context. It sets people up. I almost would want to watch the extras first for something like this, just to really paint the picture. But
right,
but I just don't remember the film enough to go, don't do that.
Well, and the crazy thing, the extras, if you look at this, the first two interviews are both 50 minutes each, 50. That's a lot.
Yeah.
All right.
What year? I'm just saying, what year was that? I'm just curious.
88.
It was 88. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, because I was working on Basket Case 2 in 89, so I was really in New York City a lot. So that definitely was that was the area. That was the era. That was the time zone of the maximum that I was in. But that's pretty cool. Yeah. It's a good time.
Next one up tonight is Computer Chess from 2013. This is coming on November 14th from Kino Lorber, and I have heard nothing but amazing things about this. I've not been able to see this yet. This has an art. You've not been able to see it yet either?
Nope.
And this is a 10th anniversary special edition. I think this is the first HD release in the States of this one. So this is really neat. And then it's got some archival interviews with the director and some from the cast, Austin Film Society Q&A from 2019, a commentary by Deep Blue programmer Murray Campbell, and then another commentary by an enthusiastic stoner. I love that they said that. And then a crowdfunding plea video, Sundance Film Festival promo, computer chess reference games, 1969 Sony AVC 3260 video camera tutorial, and a trailer for an upcoming sequel written and directed by AI.
There you go.
All in on
the
that.
Last word. That's excellent.
It's a solid sounding release, though.
It does, yeah.
Brand new film from 2023, October 10th from Lionsgate. We are getting King of Killers with Frank Grillo. This one is so odd. Lionsgate is doing this thing where they're releasing Blu-rays in DVD-sized cases now for a couple of their lower budget films, and this is one of them.
Interesting. I've never heard of this at all.
That makes a lot of sense.
Let's
go to the next one.
Might be fun. I never saw it.
I'm sure you've heard of this one. From VCI on December 8th, we are getting That Uncertain Feeling from 1941. This is an Ernst Lubitsch film. Have you seen this one?
Yeah, hilarious. Yeah, I haven't seen it since I was a kid. That used to show occasionally on $1 Million Movie, and that was one of those things where they had it at probably 11 a.m. in the morning every day of the week, and then again at 8 p.m. every day of the week. So it was kind of to me, you look back, it's kind of experimental, isn't it, to have repeat showings every day, like it was a movie theater for the rented out for the week. I remember thinking it was hilarious. But again, that is haven't seen that for a long time. Not a long time.
Interesting. And it's VCI. Not a lot of faith there, unfortunately. But they got a commentary track by Mick LaSalle, and who is a noted film historian. I just wish they'd get some better scans sometimes and put their stuff on press Blu-rays most of the time. Next one. The Emerald Forest is coming from Kino Lorber on November 28th. This says, from John Borman, the director of Point Blank, Hell in the Pacific, Deliverance, and Excalibur, comes a wildly ambitious parable that transports us to a singularly imaginative realm. The Emerald Forest is an exotic and erotic nightmare, replete with one lushly enrapturing scene after another. For 10 years, engineer Bill Markham has searched tirelessly for his son, Tommy, who disappeared from the edge of the Brazilian rainforest. Miraculously, he finds the boy living among the reclusive Amazon tribe who adopted him. And that's when Bill's adventure truly begins, for his son is now a grown tribesman who moves skillfully through this beautiful but dangerous terrain, fearful only of those who would exploit it. And as Bill attempts to rescue him from the savagery of the untamed jungle, Tommy challenges Bill's idea of true civilization and his notions about who needs rescuing. Meg Foster is also in this, and then we got a new audio commentary by filmmaker Edgar Pablos and your pal and my friend Nathaniel Thompson.
Can't wait. Now I read that, I'm listening to that description. I'm just like, it's the same movie that I saw. There's a lot of, I don't want to presuppose what they'll discuss, so that I leave that to them. But I would go into this movie. The erotic part, I don't know what they're talking about, but the other, but I do think people should watch it. Obviously, it's something you probably would see more than one time to get like the whole scope of it. But I always thought there was an unreliable narrator attached to this.
Right.
So they make it sound like it's a straightforward adventure film, which it does look like. But there are some things in that movie which are very kind of tricky. So I would advise also just going in with an extremely open mind and kind of be prepared to, like most Borman films, really, if you want to get the most out of them, you really should give them attention, more than once. It wasn't a movie that I connected with right away when I first saw it. That was still back in the time where it was like, I'm just watching them. I can't, a Borman name, go, and you're still working off of some sort of expectations or whatever. And it was one of those that I just kind of prompted me to eject that whole notion. So this is I think this is a good one to sort of test your, what your expectations of a John Borman film is, as opposed to what he actually, created in there. And it is kind of one of the last ones that he did that was it involved some kind of action spectacle. He started getting more introverted with his the dramas that he was doing after this, probably because he was just he's aging, so you don't want to move your ass all that much. And he this one is quite a physical film. So and Powers Booth is great in this too, I think. Good is a good cast, and it's just beautifully shot.
Joe Jack is asking in the comments, is there a new transfer? This film has been out for Kino already, and as we can see, there is no new transfer. But the cool thing is they are doing a small upgrade on some of these films. This is one of, I think, 5 or 6 that they've announced already that is doing this, where the original release is not to disparage Kino's great name, because they've turned into a wonderful company, but for years they were just putting all the discs that they possibly could out with hardly any special features. And they're this wonderful company now that's giving love to these in so many different ways. But back then they would put them on like the smallest size Blu-ray disc they could for the cheapest amount of money. They would be a little more compressed. So this one will have a new encode on a larger disc, so the film can breathe a little more and it will be clearer, even though it's not a new transfer. And on top of that, they recorded a new commentary for it. They didn't have to do that, and it's pretty neat that they're doing that. They're not losing the rights, so they were able to do something to give it like a little bit of a second life on home video again.
Yeah, and you can't go wrong with these two. I'm anxious to hear the commentary, because to me it's why I like working with Nathaniel a lot of times, because it's just you are going to hear something you just never considered before. So I'm excited about this. This is definitely this is on my list to try and sneak a watch in.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Next one. Speaking of 1971, December 11th in the UK, they are getting this special 4K steelbook of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and everything looks the same as the other release that came out previously. There's a commentary with the Wonka kids on the disc, but this thing, because it's got the original art, looks incredible. That's the inside art on the steelbook. I don't know if you have any steelbooks or care about them at all, but man, this is pretty.
Yeah, I don't. No, I'm just strictly. I just want I just want the movie.
Yeah.
I'll put, of course, I'll change that eventually when it's way too late and I can't get anything. But
Yep. Craig from Deaf Crocodile says somehow their output hasn't slowed down. Talking about Kino, but now it's new scans restored and with bonus features. How is that possible? Feels like some Powerball winner is financing them now. That's hilarious. All right, going to the next one. October 24th, Flicker Alley is releasing French Revelations, which will include Fanfare of Love and Bad Seed from 1934 and 1935. This is going to have a commentary for Fanfare of Love by author and filmmaker August Ventura, commentary for Bad Seed by historian, scholar, and UCLA professor Jan Christopher Horak, and then a printed essay, an 8-panel insert featuring an essay by film historian Richard Newpert. And this will be a region-free disc for anybody that wants it. Flicker Alley, they have done some really great stuff for some classic films. Have you watched many things from them?
Yeah, I mean, more than a few. But this one I didn't even know was being released. That I don't have either one of these, so this sounds interesting to me. I've never seen either one of these. Yeah,
coming just next month, October 24th. You can pre-order that on their site now.
That's really cool. I love it.
In December, Kino Lorber is releasing Jess Franco's Sinner as part of their new Kino Cult line.
Wow, who knew that would ever? That just boggles my mind. It's awesome.
We don't have any further details yet, but what do you think about Sinner?
Oh, it's great. I was used to watching this one on it looked like a Carillion photograph, like just like a heat sensitive photograph of the 40th generation tape of a 40th generation tape of a, yeah. I mean, it had like auras around it. You know, it's how degraded the generations were on VHS. I used to, I love this movie. It's a downbeat movie. I'm just curious if there's like 100,000 cuts of this thing. I'd love to know it's always worth getting a Franco film, no matter what the title is, because it's never going to be the same version you saw before. So, this is going to be a good one. I love anything Franco.
Seems like all home video buyers do too. We will be getting more and more, it looks like.
Great. Bring it on. Good stuff.
This one is interesting. December 5th, Cinedigm is releasing Monsters of California. This is a brand new 2023 film. Dallas Edwards and his friends are trying to discover answers to a series of mysterious paranormal events happening around Southern California. However, they unravel the extraordinary secrets held within the deepest levels of the government. Watch co-founder of Blink-182 and founder of Angels and Airwaves, Tom DeLonge, make his directorial debut with Monsters of California.
Never heard of it. So yeah, I'd give it a go, of course.
Joe Jack wants to know, what is your favorite Franco film?
Is that even like answerable?
One of 260.
So many. All right, you know what? No, there is one. I mean, I love them so much, but I really love the Erotic Rites of Frankenstein, and I love all those like ones that sort of interconnect with it too. But Erotic Rites of Frankenstein, the hard version of that one, where you see a lot more nudity. It's really that's like a perfect representation of like a Spanish, late 60s, early 70s, like comic book, horror comic. It's just has a great stink to it. Good atmosphere. I love the cast also, and it's a great movie, a really great movie. So that's my favorite. But that's like saying, then you have others that are almost the favorite.
Right.
I mean,
that's your favorite today.
Yeah, right. A mood ring, Jess Franco mood ring. Yeah, but I know that I really love. I mean, that's one of the ones that got me totally into Franco and just relaxed me about everything else. But that's a great one. But there's a lot of. I mean, you're talking hundreds of films. Some are, he knew are garbage. He just did it quickly. But even those are fascinating because it's who's making the garbage. I mean, when I say that, I'm not saying I'm considering it garbage. I'm just saying like he did. He would just do it for money. He would just, at certain periods. But when there's times when he's making 4 or 5 films out of one budget, and not telling anybody, not telling his backers he's doing it. You are amazed at what he comes out of him. It's he's one of those guys you should read every single thing written about him, because it's fascinating, and his interviews are amazing too. I mean, he's a character, great, but as a filmmaker, in his own sphere, he wrote a lot of language, so smart guy.
Now I kind of want to design a shirt that has the mood ring of Jess Franco.
Go for it. There you go.
Next one, the 2022 film from Joanna Hogg, The Eternal Daughter, is coming soon in 2024 from BFI. We don't have any real details on it yet, but this is sort of notable because we don't have a US release of this yet. This is the lady that did The Souvenir, and her stuff has been pretty incredible for most people, and they've really related to a lot of the films that she's done. Have you gotten to see this one yet? I've not been able to.
Didn't even know it existed until now. This is great. I'm actually very excited about that. That's good.
Nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, Tilda Swinton's supposedly amazing in it.
Always.
So this one, Kino Lorber is releasing the Eiger Sanction from 1975 on 4K soon, as if anybody doubted one of their Eastwood films would not be coming to 4K. I'm
this
sure
one's probably.
I'm
hoping this looks stunning, because it's beautifully photographed. It's outrageously sexist. It's just it's to me. I was almost shocked whenever anyone opened their mouth in this film. I was just like, oh, whoa. It's not what I was used to, even from like Clint Eastwood. I mean, he really dove into the dark pond here. So, but I was a big fan of the books, the Lou Sanction and the Eiger Sanction. They were Avon bestsellers back in the mid 70s. And the author Trevanian, which I think was a pseudonym, he actually did a really, really great one, which I always wanted to do, with, I wanted Richard Burton in it. I had my whole thing for it, was The Maine, and it took place in Canada, and it was a really, really wonderful thriller. It was a great read. But this was sort of like his, character novels back in the 70s were really big, like series like The Executioner or The Destroyer. You'd have like hundreds of these books. And the Eiger Sanction, I mean, you got 2 out of it as far as I know, but they were good, beefy things, airport fiction, But the movie, it's pretty perverse, and there's a whole section with that features. I forget her name, but it was Henry Miller's lover. Has a whole very funny sort of surreal, almost Russ Meyer-esque. She's almost like Super Soul, from like the Russ Meyer movies. She'll appear and go. Yeah, there's a very, very an interesting sequence with her. It's a fun movie. Yeah, if you want to keep your relationships with your wife or I don't go around cheering this film on. It's really offensive. It's an unusually offensive film, but I like the shock value of that. I mean, again, I'm not going to hold it against it, and it certainly doesn't feel like any other Eastwood film. And I know he wanted to go big time with the authenticity, and I do believe a climber stuntman did perish on this film. So I'm horrified to say maybe even more than one, but I think it's at least one died making this film, so it has some pedigree. No, but it's not a bad movie. But I am kind of psyched to see this in 4K. I hope they did a good job with this. I know they're doing a bunch of them, a couple more of the Eastwoods, and I think even I think they're doing redoing some of the 4K, some of these 4Ks. Yeah. Like I think Charlie Varick, I think, might be another one.
Yeah, they announced quite a few of them. Yeah,
great. That's great.
That's another 1971 also.
No, this one's 70.
No, Play Misty.
Oh, Play Misty, 71. Yeah. Of course, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Next one. Oh man, I don't know if you saw this, Howard. This is going to be a fun little rant time. So Disney on November 14th is releasing a 100 film box set ranging from 1937 to 2023 on all Blu-ray discs that they've released previously. And I've got the entire list of films here. It's pretty much all of the Disney classics, all of the Pixar films. They even have things like Planes and Planes 2.
Wow.
They listed that the MSRP for this set is $1,500. $1,500 for Blu-rays that people have been buying for the
there's
last
nothing
16 years.
So there's nothing different with the Blu-rays. Is there?
Nothing at all. There's
Bizarre.
nothing special on the Blu-rays. They are releasing it with, let me see what it says. Digital codes for every title. So if you want 2 copies of the film, a copy of the original theatrical poster art. Not sure how they're doing that. I guess in the book here, if you look at that, yeah, there's a tiny little picture of each one. And then a collectible lithograph from Disney Animation's new musical comedy, Wish, and then a collectible crystal Mickey ears hat with exclusive Disney 100 engraving. And with all of that, $1,500 MSRP.
Well, ever since the pandemic, you just kind of don't know how long you got anymore, especially if you have kids. So maybe it's one of those things where it's like, if just in preparation for a quick expiration date on your life, that you just go, here's your Christmas gift for the next 10 years, and you make it one-shot investment. Wish they would do that with just Franco.
Oh my God, that would have to be like $4,000.
For that, I would fork out. No, but this is this depends how much you really love all Disney.
Right. Well, and the truth is, this will not come out at $1,500. When you can pre-order this, which will be sometime in the next week or two, there is it's probably going to be cheaper than that. It'll probably end up being like $700 or $800. The MSRP is $1,500, but it'll likely be somewhere between $500 and $800. But even then, all of these Blu-rays, people have most people don't have all of them, but people have been buying these Blu-rays for the last 16 years for all of these films. I'm so confused by this choice.
Yeah, I don't want to cast aspersions. I mean, it definitely sounds like a cynical sort of attempt. Oh yeah. We just had Antonio.
This was sarcasm. I'm sorry to correct you. There is something special about these Blu-rays. Okay. Most come with no extras.
Well, that's sad if they even abandoned the meager extras that they did come out with. Yeah.
Well, a lot of them had hardly anything to begin with. But I mean, the truth of the matter is, and Sibner in the comments here says it, you can find most of these secondhand for like $4 a piece. It's
bizarre.
Yeah. We don't need to spend any more time on that. I put out an interview with Justin LaLiberty from OCN Distribution this week. I hope people check it out. It was fun. The funniest thing, we hardly talked about OCN at all. We really talked about like the state of the home video industry at the moment, what he uses Letterboxd for, and really just kind of hung out for almost an hour and a half, and it was a lot of fun. Justin is fun to talk to for sure.
And he's a cool guy. He's the one who produced the extras for Tough Guys Don't Dance, and that was the one. I think I told you I had done a thing for Tough Guys Don't Dance. MGM was just like no, but he was very square about it. He was good about it. I mean, he was very encouraging. He's cool. So I wish it made the disc, but maybe we'll have a chance to work with him at another point.
Yeah,
but he was good producer. I love this movie.
Sony Pictures. They are putting out Black Hawk Down in a 4K steelbook on November 7th. And the big thing here is they added Dolby Vision to the 4K. They put this movie out on 4K a few years ago, and now they've made it a little bit better. The coloring will be better on this one. You say you love this movie. I love this movie. And actually, a friend of mine, he's in this movie for like 30 seconds. He was
probably on the production for like a year, probably. It's a cool movie. I used to again, this is why I use myself as my own litmus test paper. I think it was after Blade Runner, I just didn't care for Ridley Scott movies. I just decided, they weren't affecting me at all. And all I could see was that really what he is as well, although I see that in a different perspective now. I used to think that he was during certain scenes, I don't even know if he was present to direct the actors. It just looked like master shot, close up, and then get to a sequence where probably he was more hands-on. But that's me reading into it. It just looked like that. And I don't know what happened. One morning I watched Exodus, not Otto Preminger, and it legitimately blew my mind. I don't know, I can't even describe. Just suddenly clicked. So I went back and I watched everything, and this is one of the first ones I went back to, and I was just like, I don't know. I mean, he is what he is, but what he is more than what you think you're gonna get. I mean, I really thought this was a cool film. Really, really cool. It's a lot of great sequences and a great cast.
A few weeks ago, on one of my other shows, we did a show on Tony and Ridley Scott, and put it all together, and we talked about it for the entire time. How do you land on Tony versus Ridley? How do you feel about both of them, comparing them?
I never hooked into Tony yet. Nate did set me up. Nathaniel Thompson set me up with a whole library of Tony Scott. So I'm still waiting for time where I can sit down and just reevaluate, fresh mind. Yeah. Again, initially, and this is again why I don't like to even think like this, because it's superfluous. But now I look at it again in a different way. I had a particularly long international flight once going to Italy, and like 3 of his films were on the palette. So I put them on, but I was having a bit of a headache, and I didn't really want to. I just wanted to have it on the background. Didn't want to listen to anything. It was like hard for me to listen to stuff. Like there was kids crying. It was really driving me crazy. A long flight, and visually, it was almost, to me, I think it was Enemy of the State. Seemed, and this is again has nothing to do with how I would watch it now or what I would feel it now, but I remember going like, this is incoherent visually. This is not. And if you watch Ridley Scott's movies, it's a very, very different. They're not the same person at all. They're two totally different things. But I can't speak about Tony because I do have to rewatch them all. I mean, like I did with Ridley Scott. I mean, I even like something like American Gangster, I remember not clicking at all with me. And, during that phase, I went back and no, just I could understand now what everything was supposed to be for, or what it was meaning. It was a great adventure to watch his stuff. So I'm, I have no idea what Tony's gonna, bring for me. I do like the Tarantino edit, which I think was a fan edit. I don't think they ever did it legit, but someone had actually took the original ending of the film, which I thought made perfect sense. Suddenly it made, and I didn't, I used to blame, who knew who. I thought Tarantino had some power in there, some collaborative effort with Scott from what I was hearing. But I now placing, well, I'm not going to say because people haven't seen it. I'm not going to ruin it for him, but the alternate, the original ending makes sense about who Christian Slater, what he represents to the main characters, and so I wish that was made available. I know there's 2 versions. I've only seen, I saw it in the theater, but I don't remember how differences or anything. I know there's 2 different versions on the Blu-ray, so
right.
They're both highly watchable. But this fan edit really gets me. Like I go, oh, that's my go-to. So I don't know if they're, they might. Hopefully, someone can encourage them if they haven't done it already to do it like what they did with Brian De Palma's Raising Cain. The fan edit was really just as important to watch as the theatrical edit. There's a lot of reasons why these things are so different. I mean, it's not always the director's choice. It's not always, we don't know the contracts. We don't know the deals. We don't know, the promises that were made. No idea. But I would vote, if it hasn't been done already, someone tells me that they already did this, great. But that fan edit, which made the rounds, I definitely would highly recommend that being, maybe just not upscaled, but actually recut for, high def.
Yeah,
I'll film that 79. Nice. See, yeah, Raising Cain. It was great, but they're both good. Like I love, that's the whole thing. Is I really am fascinated. I'm not turned off by one or the other. There's a lot of great stuff. Another movie that like I would seek that out for is King. The '76 King Kong, which I think is I always enjoyed it, and people don't realize that was never a badly reviewed movie. They tried to, just because there was that, ridiculous, Carlo Rambaldi extravagance, that statue that they used. I mean, that's, yeah, what can you do? But the Rick Baker effects, again, everyone wants to kind of condescend to that and say it's just like a monkey outfit. No, that's a series of incredibly amazingly put together hydraulic outfits with incredible emotional. But the script is by Lorenzo Semple Jr., who did Pretty Poison and Parallax View, and there's a lot of great continuing, satire. He would tackle an era really succinctly. So that's another one where not just they have the regular version, but they also the theatrical, but they also have the TV version, which was padded out for, I think, NBC with some extra stuff. There's even more stuff that wasn't put in that, and I have a composite edit, and it's beautiful. I mean, Jessica Lange, my God, her whole character's different by the end of that version. So the best thing you could do is probably watch the both versions and see what, but I'm glad, I would love to see, more of that. But bringing back to Tony Scott, again, that's one of the things I would love to just re-experience it, as they were. I know there's two versions that exist of True Romance, but I never saw Domino, and I really didn't give much of a chance to the other ones, and it's not right. So I'm going to watch it. So still have some exposure to it. Yes, Batman and Flash Gordon, aces. I mean, he's a master satirist. Marco, thank you. He was really brilliant, and I grew up with him. Of course, with Batman and stuff. So he's one of the names that you see, when you're 5, 6, 7 years old, and if you cared, you stays with you.
They stick,
and you start to trust them. When you start seeing them doing features and things like that. So, good stuff.
All right. Next one is another Sony Steelbook, The Guns of Neverone. This is from 1961. This is coming on November 7th. And again, this one is now coming with Dolby Vision. This is one that had been released previously, and now that
was one of the most beautiful high 4K Blu-rays I had ever seen. That you could just reach into. That was just like Wonka wallpaper or whatever. You want to lick it.
Yeah. My friend John DeMarsco says, Howard, I'm not super familiar with your work, but I love hearing you talk film.
Thank you, sir.
Howard, do you like baseball?
On film?
John DeMarsco, the one that commented here, he is the broadcast director for the Mets.
Oh, go Mets.
He runs the game night every night in the truck.
Cool beans. We'll talk. Get me into a game.
You probably can. Next up, Prey. We had talked about this previously, coming out in the US. This finally got a date in the UK. This is coming on November 27th in a steelbook and a standard release. Did you happen to catch up with this one? That was
not at all, but I did hear it was fun. I heard some good things about it, but again, it wasn't on the queue, but I'm always willing. Let me see what the extras are here.
They are doing quite a bit. There's a making of, there's a panel with the cast and crew, alternative opening scene, Big Warrior, Little Warrior, treetop chase, and then a full audio commentary. So they didn't skimp out either, which it's Disney, so they easily could have.
Oh, wow. I wonder, is this I'm guessing it's a fairly large budgeted thing. Is it 20th century or no?
Yeah, it's a 20th century film, and it was, it went straight to Hulu, but this is basically, it should have been a theatrical film.
Yeah, you can't blame the film for that. That's for sure.
Right. Well, and it came out during COVID, so it was never really given a fair shake, unfortunately. Next announcement is Haunted Mansion from Disney from this year is getting a 4K, a Blu-ray, a Steelbook, special Walmart release that comes with an enamel pin. And these are all coming on October 17th. And this is going to have a making of that's 13 minutes long, a Happy Haunts featurette that's 7 minutes long, some deleted scenes, gag reel, and yeah. That's about it. I've not seen this yet. I'm assuming you have not either. A lot of people were wondering why they released this in July, I think is when they released this on streaming. But now it'll
Wow.
come out in October, right before Halloween. So
All
that
right,
kind of
well, then
makes
they made
sense.
up for it then. I hope it's spooky.
Yeah.
It looks like
I hope it
Clue.
is too.
Looks like Clue, like kind of being winky.
Speaking of, we need a good release of Clue. When do we get a big 4K box set of Clue?
With all the different endings and yeah. What was Seamless Branch? Do they still do that?
They do actually, yeah. Bradley Pooper says, "Are we getting a Volume 4 of Columbia Classics 4K?" Gosh, I hope so. Those box sets have been incredible. Let's go to our next one. Eric Romer.
This I love. God, I love every single damn thing. But this is a whole new. Oh, look at that. Oh, Adrian Martin. Oh, good. Okay, no, good commentary. It looks like Adrian Martin.
Yeah, we actually have 3 Romero announcements to go over tonight. The first one is The Aviator's Wife. This is coming on November 14th from Metrograph, who is a bit of a partner label for Kino Lorber. So Kino will handle all the distribution. This will be up, on the Kino site and all that. This is the 1981 film. It'll have an audio commentary by Adrian Martin. What can you tell us about The Aviator's Wife?
I mean, honestly, Romer is one of these guys where, you could get into him just by watching it, picking anyone up. But I would, when is this coming out? In October? I kind of would urge people to, if they're planning on attacking this, to start in chronological order, because he has a fantastic, growth. I mean, it usually is just a chamber pieces, a very small amount of characters and a lot of dialogue, just watching them interact and sort of grow or shrink away depending upon the relationship. And they're usually they're funny, but they're very sublime. So they're not, you can't like pigeonhole it in a genre, like it's a drama or a comedy or art. To even say it's an art film, it's not. That's kind of removing it from its own identity. Romer is someone who you start to realize how complex the filmmaking is when you start to realize this isn't a documentary. And I don't like ruining things like this, because I don't want to give a painting of it and then someone's like, oh, and they'll just ignore it because of the way I painted it. Just know that the director is very unique, and I think his whole career is wild. But what I did was, and I think I ultimately enjoyed his stuff more, is I went back before I even at the time, I think one of the first ones I saw, oh gosh, I can't remember. It was in the 70s and I was a kid, but they would show this stuff at like the local universities, and my sister would constantly be taking me to things like that at the university. And Romer, they had like about 7 or 8 of his films in a row up until the release of the new one. I just can't remember which one it was, but it was around 78 or 9, I think. And I felt a little bit more prepared. I was in the groove, and then when I saw the new one, that's when you start to put the older ones in perspective, and then maybe get a sight for what's coming. So I don't really want to ruin this particular one by just talking about plot, because it's really not what it's about. It's really about relationships. And I love the painted cover of this, because it does represent what he's sort of about. There's definitely it is about spatial relationships, and it is about the tensions, or the opposite of that, the what you're not thinking about between people that are important. And I think that's a great indication of what the movie might be. Certainly not dry. He's always very surprising. And a lot of directors, like I really don't think you'd have people like Slacker, Linkletter, without directors like especially specifically directors like Eric Romer or Claude Chabrol. I definitely don't think. I think they kind of embraced the essence of of that kind of structure and the character, and also sort of the way they're positioned in the drama spatially. So if you like Richard Linklater and that kind of drama, this takes it to an even deeper series of levels. So thumbs up on this one. This is great. Kino's been doing great stuff, in the foreign, market, like the French films and stuff like that. They're fantastic. I'm sure it'll look great too.
Yeah. And we've got a companion piece with it. We've got Boyfriends and Girlfriends in the same art style.
Great.
This one, November 28th. This one's from 87 as well.
Yeah. These are all great, but they're not plot movies. Like,
right.
You shouldn't even care. Honestly, it's like the best recommendation I can give is okay. They're the same covers as the Potemkin.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we got one more that we'll cover in just a few minutes, but this is just great. These films have been released a few times, but I believe this is the first time that this restoration will be in the U.S., if I remember right. And Adrian Martin is on this one as well, coming November 28th, again from Metrograph. Next up, 2 Days in the Valley from 1996 is coming from Kino on November 14th. This will have a new audio commentary by the writer-director John Hertzfeld. We got Sylvester Stallone and John Hertzfeld having a 35-minute conversation on this. They're just buds. Stallone has nothing to do with this film, I believe. There's a Q&A at Cinefamily with actors Charlize Theron, Glenn Headley, John Hertzfeld, Catherine Hardwicke, and Scott Ray, and the host Hadrian Belove. And there's a making of that's 7 minutes long, some B-roll footage, cast and crew sound bites, quite a bit on here. This is interesting.
I have never seen this film. I haven't even seen
it. It's a hell of a cast. Hell of a cast on this one.
Yep.
Danny Aiello, Jeff Daniels, Terry Hatcher, James Spader, Eric Stoltz.
Definitely that it wouldn't have been made without Pulp Fiction, of course. That was the fall off of that film. But never. So it came out around the same time as the Heads in the Body Bag or whatever.
8 heads in a duffel bag.
Dead hookers in a pot or whatever. I don't know. There's a whole series of these movies. And I just never, again, I would have usually, but I just have not seen. I had no time to see them when they were out.
Sibner says the trailer says that it out-pulped Pulp Fiction, but he doesn't know about that.
Oh, he enjoyed it, so that's good. I'll try it.
Next up, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. The brand new film is coming out on Halloween, October 31st on 4K. And of course, it will get a steelbook with this. This has a commentary. It's got some extended scenes, some behind-the-scenes stuff. There's some deleted shots, an editorial featurette. Unfortunately, the editorial featurette and the deleted scenes montage are relegated to digital only. So if you buy this on home video, you are leaving yourself shy of a couple of their special features. I don't love that.
No, I don't know.
Next up, Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai from 1999 is coming on 4K in the UK from Studio Canal. And this will also have this red steelbook, which is pretty nice. This one is going to... Yeah, this is a great movie. It's got some deleted scenes. It's got the Journey into the Life of a Samurai featurette on here. This will have Dolby Vision and HDR. And Jim Jarmusch, one of his bigger films from back then.
Yeah, Henry Silva. Yeah, I wouldn't. If you're a Henry Silva fan, I wouldn't hesitate. This is a fun one.
Yeah, and Criterion did put this out on Blu-ray, so I would not be surprised if they put it out on 4K eventually. Next up, Violent Night from 2022 is getting a Best Buy exclusive 4K steelbook. This is coming on November 7th, and this is another one of those times where they announced this last year, came out on Blu-ray, and now it's here on 4K just a year later, so they can take advantage of pocketbooks that loved this movie.
I did hear good things about it. I haven't seen it. Didn't this come out in the same amount of time as like Terrifier 2 and things like that? There was a lot of mush about these movies, but I did hear good things. I just haven't again, haven't had time.
Same. I speaking of baseball, just a few minutes ago, we went to a Royals game since we're here in Kansas City. I think it was last year that we went, and it randomly David Harbour, the star of this, was there to throw the opening pitch. We had no idea he was going to be there. It was like, oh, look at that!
Wow. Okay. Gravitas.
Yeah, it was interesting. Scarface, the '83 film, is getting a 40th anniversary 4K steelbook. Not a lot of details out on this yet because this was already 4K. I don't know if there will be anything special about it, but most people that love this movie have probably bought this already 6 or 14 times.
Mm-hmm. but this I've actually watched, hundreds of times already.
Right.
Anything De Palma is gonna get my heart pumping. So it's almost, and this is a hilarious film. It's another great satire by him, and there's so many beautiful bits and pieces in this. I would hope I would be involved in some of these extras, but he's one of these guys where like people just keep expecting, and he plays on this. They keep expecting some kind of serious examination of his topic, and he is much more interested, always was, in just provoking his audience's expectations away from where you get them. And this has a lot of great gags in it. It's a really, really sophisticated film, and without giving, I mean, I'm imagining there's people who still haven't seen it. I just kind of endorse it. It's a good one. Hilarious, quotable, endlessly quotable, but there's some really, really funny, ghoulish little bits in this movie, and it's a great flick. But when they start talking about like it, it's a serious examination, and I don't know, it's just a great satire. another brilliant satire by De Palma.
Well, and that's De Palma for you. He's kind of had a masterpiece in almost every single genre at this point.
Every single film. It's like some people just trash his movies. I'm like, I don't know. Are you watching these? Or this is pretty brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
But
Marco says it's a very expensive exploitation movie, and I mean that as a high compliment. Well said. Next up is one that is fascinating. I'm very keen to see this. Coming in winter of this year from Oscilloscope, Gods of Mexico from 2022. And I'm going to read this one in case people have not heard of it, like I had not until this was announced. With visually stunning landscapes and immersive sound, Gods of Mexico is a poetic survey of the vast landscapes and rich diversity of several communities of rural Mexico. Using richly saturated color and hypnotic black and white interludes, filmmaker Helmut Dos Santos takes viewers through salt pans, deserts, highlands, jungle, and underground mines, paying tribute to those who fight to preserve their cultural identity amidst the shadows of modernization positions.
They got me right off the bat. That sounds outrageous. Very cool.
Have you paid attention to Oscilloscope much in the past?
Yeah, occasionally, not with an interest. I mean, it's just if they've distributed something, so I can't really pinpoint. But yeah, I have a lot of their releases. But this one sounds, again, I love being put on a track, and this sounds like it's just sort of exactly, I'm ready to go wherever they're going to take me on this one. This sounds really cool.
Just lean back and ingest. I get it.
Yeah, no, this sounds unique. So
definitely does. Hey, Film Masters, we can talk about them for a moment. January 16th, they are releasing The Devil's Partner, and they are pairing that with Creature from the Haunted Sea.
That's a hilarious movie. That's great. Creature from the Haunted Sea.
I've never seen either of these, so I can't wait for you to tell me about it.
Creature of the Haunted Sea is great.
This will have a new 4K restoration from the archival elements on The Devil's Partner. This will have the TV version of The Devil's Partner.
Wow,
the theatrical version of Creature from the Haunted Sea will also be included. And then an extended TV version of Creature from the Haunted Sea will be included. There's an audio commentary on Devil's Partner, an audio commentary for the theatrical version of Creature from the Haunted Sea, and then a booklet with essays by Tom Weaver and Jackson Cooper, plus Hollywood Intruders, the film group story, Part 3 by Ballyhoo Motion Pictures. There is so much on all of these Film Masters releases. You've been involved with them. Why don't you tell us about this release, and then we can talk about Film Masters for a minute.
This is the first time I'm hearing about this one, so I'm excited now. Creature from the Haunted Sea is, again, that's I think a classic film group. I think it's film group, not AIP. Corman, it's really, really good. Yeah, they did that with Last Woman on Earth, and they're both really deadpan funny and just really smart and well cast. Again, shot. I think Robert Town is. I think he's in Last. I don't know if he's in this one. I can't remember. But he's in Last. Woman on Earth. That he probably wrote a lot of it, either uncredited or whatever. Again, this has been a long time since I saw this. I think. I can't remember who put it out. Was it Image? Put out a triple DVD with those a long time ago now. But they were, again, I saw them on TV, so you just never expected these things. They're really off the wall, and they have a great sense of humor, very deadpan, but a lot of fun. Devil's Partner, I just don't know. I never grew up with it. This is all new to me, so I'm very excited about this. Especially all the different presentations. I'll watch the whole thing. I'll watch them all.
Well, and you've done some work with Film Masters.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about what you've done?
Well, they're great. I mean, they were Film Detective, and they sort of let that go. Unfortunately, they thought they were making probably a decent move, but the company that unfortunately took it over didn't quite do what they were hoping they would do with it, and it didn't carry. So I think Phil Hopkins, who sort of is the lead, the master, the lead film master here. I think he just got really antsy and wanted to continue with the integrity that he was. It's hard to let these films that. They're just orphaned, and it's hard to let them all go by the, just decompose. And, I mean, there's a certain window of time where if you can find the people who own these, if there's any elements, negative or print, they're going to go for it. And I think this is really a cool, this is an example of a cool thing. Now, again, I had done, I think it's going to be their first release, the, Beast from Haunted Cave, and I had been asked to do commentary with Courtney Joyner for who I've done a couple of commentaries with prior. We did Breezy for Kino and Skullduggery with Sergio Mims together, and I've known Courtney forever. He's a wild guy and a great resource and just incredibly talented dude. So he got me into doing that for Ski Troop Attack, which again, it's just great to know, I mean, that may have been, the best that they had, the elements they had. It's, I mean, that's a tough one, to find pristine elements for, but that's why sometimes they're double features or second features, maybe as good as you can find, HD thing, but the lead feature will always probably be something they really killed themselves to put together, that you just can't see any other way, especially in the condition that they've gotten. They really work their asses off. And it's been a pleasure so far. And I just finished a thing for them for a video essay with Kevin Marr, my Destructible Man partner. And we just did a thing for The Terror. Which is their release, and I love The Terror, so that's going to be a cool release that's coming. I think that's their second release, and this is probably their fourth release. They're also doing the Scarlet Letter, a really hard to find version of that, but I know Sam Sherman was a big champion of that one, so I think that's how that my generation heard about it, when we were kids. And again, that used to play on TV, but not for decades. So what they're doing is, I think, a fantastic restoration job, as well as they're picking great movies that are far more entertaining than people realize. I mean, I remember, and I talked to Phil and Crystal about this, is that, I used to remember going in like the mid 90s, going to Border Books and just at the cafe and sit and talk. You meet friends in the cafe, Border Books. And, but in the video area, they had their DVD area. I guess maybe some VHS. I don't even remember. Probably some VHS, but
In the '90s, yeah, they had to.
DVD was still popping. It was starting. And Alpha Video, I remember, was a company that, like, it was just sort of thousands of titles of public domain titles just thrown out there, and the quality be damned. They had it, they were going to release it. And I really, what I appreciate is that some of that stuff is fascinating to get your hands on, but hard, really hard to watch sometimes because of the degradation. You used to, get depressed. Oh my God, I think I like this movie, but how can I watch this? And what I like about Film Masters is that they're really not just taking the time and the resources that they've really tried to network into some great sources. They're really trying to give it the best presentation to the moment. And on top of that, they're trusting people, really smart people like like Larry Blameyer and Tom Weaver, you read, and these historians like Daniel Griffith, the Ballyhoo stuff is, that's what he specializes in this. So very thorough, and you're going to get a good context, everything, good history. So I really appreciate that when they're starting back like this, like the phoenix from the ashes, yeah, that's right, Marco. Yeah, he says Marco Freitas is Dan Haller worked on Devil's Partner. So that's another reason to sort of be interested, because Daniel Haller's a fascinating set designer and director too. So yeah, thank you. All right. So now I'm double excited now. But they, again, any company that understands that, not just you have that aspect of it, you have the educational aspect, you also have the quality aspect is very difficult with these orphan films. But now I think what they're doing, which I think is special, is they realize that, especially post-pandemic, this is my observation, is that there's people now who really enjoy discussing unboxing, even video unboxings are incredibly popular. The sharing aspect of the discovery, of the anticipation of I really love that, and I think that they do too. And it's a shame that some things like Turner Classic Movies had a great thing going for a while. I think on Saturday nights, at midnight, didn't they used to have these oddball movies that no one cared about, but of course they were great, and and then they had the Movie Morlocks page on their blog, and that was when they would have people of very different tastes and upbringing and styles of observation, and they would write about the stuff, and then they would start a dialogue with the viewers, with the fans. And I think TCM Underground, thank you. And I really love that's what they're into. They want people to just discuss and get it, like we're doing now. We're getting a lot of feedback here, and it's almost a shame they're not all on here with us,
Yeah, and it's clear they love it. I mean, look at how much stuff I read out for this disc. First off, it's 2 films, and you're going to get context for both. For many other companies, they would just put 2 films on a disc and say, well, you got a double feature. That's a lot. Good luck. And then Film Masters, they go above and beyond, because they hide Easter eggs on every single one of their discs as well. So everything listed here is not even it. You can go press all your directional buttons on your remote, and you'll find something else from them as well.
Yeah. When is this release? When is this one?
This is January. This is their. This is actually their 5th release.
Oh, 5th release.
Yeah, Scarlet Letter will be the 3rd. That's in November. They have one in December, and then this is January 16th.
Cool. Very cool.
And I believe they're planning on staying at 1 a month. So,
I'm sure at some point that will change. I'm positive. They're. It's like Rolling Stone. It does gather moss. They'll do it. I'm sure they'll do it. They have just a really good vision and an open mind. They're not just jamming down one specific thing, but they are giving you a good taste of certain aspects of film history. Like, I do like this whole film group attention that they're giving, because people just think Roger Corman, did AIP and that was it. And there's the backstory to that is just epic, and he's also kind of a tricky director to begin with. He's really smart, not just business wise. I mean, he is an intellectual and an instinctive filmmaker, which are two cool things to combine when you are also an expert, producer, and you have just impeccable taste. But you know the audience that you're making a film for, and you also know the audience that you are to your own work. And I think even when he works subconsciously on stuff, it's always much smarter. Like working off The Terror, we were shocked that this movie's made by, including him, 7 directors.
Wow.
And here he is getting more immaculate films done in like 2 days of shooting. And this is the era that he's doing it in, and he's doing, a couple of weeks, he really got a great movie, not some fluff. I mean, there's certain elements of the era, but has nothing to do with quality.
Right.
That's just what you work with, what you have, and that was fine. But he's also a brilliant guy who, in The Terror, we just started seeing that, God, these guys are going rogue, 6 other directors going off and shooting stuff, and then they're going to come back and he's going to have to make sense out of this stuff. And these are all very ambitious guys, running and filming. And I mean, I think like Dennis Jacob, who did a lot, work on Apocalypse Now and stuff. He's a San Francisco dude. He went off and I think he went and shot stuff. And I think Corman saw the footage and he's like, what the hell is this? This isn't, costumes has nothing to do with the movie. And he realized that he just went off and shot like another movie with the stock or using the equipment. He didn't have to pay. So, but these guys went off and just did, Monty Hellman, and they all were ordered, Coppola. They all went off at various places in California to shoot various scenes, and then they kind of tied it together. And for years, again, it was the most condescended to movie. I mean, he was really condescended to, because they try to make it sound like he was some kind of a skinflint, a master at making exploitation and skin. And no, I mean, there's a lot of meat to his stuff, which is very interconnected. And if you watch The Terror carefully, there's a lot of interconnection with a lot of the other movies, mainly because he wanted to reuse a lot of the production value from the other films. It still was there, and they were going to be, everything's going to be destroyed. Sets for The Terror were going to be completely knocked down after that film. So he went to England after that for a couple of films. And The Terror really makes sense. It's insane. I mean, the storyline's insane. And your brain, will boil before you sit there and you go, it makes clear sense. But it absolutely follows a plot that is just insane. And we try and go through that to make it clear for people what's going on. Right. But at the same time, there's dummy deaths in this thing. So it's convoluted thematically and visually. And you just start that trickle effect, and to me, you got magic, and The Terror was pretty nice. And I really applaud, those guys, Crystal and Phil at Filmmasters for being, really indulgent and patient, and they've just been great. So hopefully people will enjoy it. Something like this, you can only present your case and then hope that people understand your explanation of it. But it's also, a lot of people aren't ready to buy the fact that Corman actually was an intellectual. He was the first guy, once he got New World Pictures, he was the guy who bought Ingmar Bergman's Cries and Whispers and put it in drive-in theaters as an art film. And, people forget he is an intellectual. He's a smart dude. And his movies, no matter how fakaked or, teen-oriented they would be for the eras, there's always some amazing thing about it. So can't get my highest endorsement. And I really applaud Filmmasters for really starting off and caring about Corman alongside these other productions. It's really I just think it's it's something to look forward to for sure.
Next up, Orbit DVD is having a 20th anniversary sale. This starts tomorrow at noon Eastern. You can get 35% off of Unearthed Films, Radiance Films, Arrow Video, Severn Films, and 88 Films. Just a few things on this. They say you cannot combine the sale items with the pre-order, but you can buy other movies on the site that are in stock. You can also use the 3 free code for free shipping. And to avoid chaos, you cannot go back to edit or cancel your orders yourself. This will be online only, but if you are local, you can order it for pickup. And these are going to be drop shipped daily, so they expect it won't be fulfilled as fast as normally. It's going to be a busy sale for them, guaranteed. This is their first time that they've gone into having a sale like this, so have a little bit of patience with them. This is going to be pretty damn big for them, I'm betting. So good luck to everybody that wants in on it.
Good.
Next up is the other Romare, Four Adventures of Raynette and Mirabelle.
Another later one. This is great.
Yeah, 87.
Yeah.
Next up. Oh, I guess I didn't say a date for that one, did I? That's November 21st from Metrograph.
Okay,
so
that's not far off. That's good.
All coming in November.
Highly recommend. I can't recommend these enough.
Nice.
But don't read about them. It's pointless. Just experience. Seriously, they're not plot movies. They're emotion movie. They're fun. Some of them are very fun.
Another Kino Lorber partner, Cohen Media. They are putting out the Buster Keaton Collection Volume 5. That is coming on November 7th. This will have 3 ages and Our Hospitality.
You will be sore from laughing, exhausted, and so on. I remember I was very lucky to see a Buster Keaton festival, I think at the Gotham Theater, could be wrong, decades ago in New York City. And I went to everything, and my ribs were raw, and I couldn't speak. Same thing, around the same time, New York was going through a great thing. They had the Keaton thing going on, like it seemed unceasing. And they also had a Laurel and Hardy thing, where I went in for one day, and it was like a 9-hour exhibition of all these shorts that I really either didn't remember or I haven't seen. And I couldn't talk. I was raw. I was done. Absolutely done. This is the same thing. So if you want to take a chance, if you have no stigma at silent films or whatever, believe me, you're not even going to know they're silent films, because there's nothing creaky. There's nothing unimaginative. It's 100% new language that he's doing. He came up with as much as Hitchcock did, and Griffith and all these people. He was really pioneering. And especially these 2 movies, I can't wait. It's probably going to look gorgeous. They never really looked so terrible, from my memory, at least in the last couple of decades. But Cohen does some great stuff. So I'm excited about this. Hilarious. Brutal.
Yeah. I can't wait. And all of their releases of the Keaton stuff has been great so far.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Kino Lorber is releasing Scrapper from this year on November 7th. This will have an audio commentary by the director, Charlotte Reagan, a making-of featurette, and the trailer. I'd heard just a little bit about this one because it did pretty well at Sundance. And, I've heard it's a decent one.
I never heard of it, but it's good to be exposed.
Next up, WandaVision and Loki got announcements in the UK. These were announced for the US prior. WandaVision doesn't have a date listed yet, but Loki will be releasing on November 27th, and Mandalorian will also be releasing over there as well. And then this one. I'm curious if you have any deep feelings for Kevin Smith. They announced that on November 7th, Lionsgate is releasing a Clerks 3-film premium collection. And this looks to be a long box type of thing that you will put on your shelf to display. It's got a VHS slot for you to store the box set of the films. It's got a sticker sheet for you to put on the back of the box and sort of graffiti. There is so much love that is being put on the front of this that this looks like a lot of fun. How do you feel about Kevin Smith and the Clerks franchise?
Again, never really clicked with me. I think Clerks. Yeah, the first one, I think definitely. I think sort of had some. It resonated a little bit because I could relate to a lot of things.
Yeah.
I actually had just done. Altogether, it's pretty much a feature, but I just sort of like what Daniel Griffith is doing with the film group thing. I was asked for Umbrella in Australia. I was asked to do one per title. It's funny. One per title of the Nicholas Refn Pusher series.
Yeah.
And I think I went back and I watched Clerks because of that. There's the Bleeder, another film that Refn did that I think there's a lot of obvious, interconnectivity, of inspiration from it and stuff. So I had to watch it again, and I enjoyed Clerks much more than I remembered when I saw it. But again, it's all fresh to me now because I'm happy about that. I want to see it with fresh eyes. So this is good. I'm not gonna spring for this, but I do like that storefront. But I will. There's a time where it's going to come where I do have to watch them all.
Yeah.
Again. I like him as a stand-up too. I mean, that's what I really liked him as. I just like watching him sit and talk for 2.5 hours.
He's a damn good storyteller.
Yeah, as a raconteur, I like that. So I like that. Oh no, I liked what was the Red State.
I love Red State.
I like
it is
Red
my
State.
favorite.
Michael Parks is awesome. That was a good stretch for him. I thought I was really that was what I never saw Tusk, or if I did, I wasn't in a coherence. But Red State, I did. I enjoyed. So yeah, I'm looking forward to a more thorough revisit. And we'll probably do same thing, chronological. Might make more sense to me.
A lot of people seem to hate the third one. I actually really enjoyed the third one.
That's what I'm saying. Why listen to it at all? Why care? Why care? Just like it's coming out, go watch it. You know what I mean? It's see what it does. It makes you put it on a queue so that you're not gonna, well, I heard it wasn't so good, so I'm gonna wait on that one. Why? What?
Right.
Don't let them do it to you, man.
All right.
They're not looking out for you.
The Carpetbaggers from 1964 is coming out.
Edward Dmytryk, God bless him.
This one will have 2 new audio commentaries. One by film historian and writer Julie Kurgo, and one by David Delval.
Kurgo, I'd fall off a cliff for. She's brilliant. I loved her Twilight Time stuff, and I love when she ran that, and I love all her commentaries. She's got the heart for it, so I'm really excited to see that. I love her, and her dad was damn talented screenwriter. Great. So David Delval, yeah, great, cool beans. No, Dmytryk, anything, flat out, don't listen to anybody, any critic. I just can't stand it. He made some personal choices in life with the HUAC thing. Kind of, I don't know. Everyone was trying to survive, I guess. The way it was all a big mistake. But as a director, though, I love it. Thank you, Stan. God bless you. Give you my phone number, but just talk forever. Thank you. No, I really appreciate that. My God, I'm not like my parents have been dead for a long time. They never they would love hearing you guys tell me that I'm worth something. 100% Carpetbaggers. You can't go deep enough. I'm jealous. I'm not on this disc. This is brilliant. When is this coming out?
November 28th.
Great. Yeah. Carpetbaggers, and Henry Hathaway did sort of, I don't think it's the entire novel. It was a part of the novel, which is also really cool and tawdry, but brilliantly written, was Nevada Smith. And I know that they put out a beautiful version of that with my Bud Courtney Joyner doing commentary on that one. And that's another one I really am hoping somebody like Imprint will put that out too, so I can force myself into that production. I may just have to do stuff on my own about that and put it on our website, because Nevada Smith and Carpetbaggers are, you just don't, they're real pure cinema from a mainstream movie. And they imprinted that.
Cat Ellinger's on the commentary for theirs.
I'll have to seek that out because I love cat stuff too. That's where I'll double dip. the movie, yeah, of course. But when I start seeing like Cat Ellinger or whatever, I got the hooks are there for me. I mean, I love her perspectives on almost everything. Yeah, this is a great movie. Anything Edward Dmytryk. I mean, he could. If it's 3 hours of him crapping on the sidewalk, it's probably something beyond my comprehension. So I'll dive in. He's great. Great.
Love that.
Yeah, this is a really perverse movie. So don't think you're just going to see it and it's going to be like, oh, this is a dull movie. Nothing. It's all of these movies are out of left field. They're pure. I mean, if you really want to start off, if you want to work your way up to the Carpetbaggers, which is a great way to do it, start with The Devil Commands from the 40s with Boris Karloff that he did. That is a deranged. It's Halloween's coming. That is one creepy ass movie, and that actually gave me nightmares after I'd seen it. I hadn't seen it since I was a little kid, and watching it as an adult, I realized probably why I hadn't watched it since a little kid. It is brilliant. I mean, and all his films are, even the war propaganda stuff that he did, and I mean. His film noirs, he basically created the cliches in film noir, or at least focused them, together to finally develop what people would say is like the, Murder My Sweet. They're shocking how stylized and how brilliant they are. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to skip over the Carpetbaggers like, oh, it's just a catalog title. It's not. It's really, really amazing, and you got some, great people to guide you through it on that disc. So good. This is really exciting for me. I'm glad.
Good. Next up, friends in Germany, Wicked Vision are releasing Rawhead Rex on 4K in, I think we're at 7 different cover options, 7 or 8, something crazy like that. And these are going to be available to pre-order in like a handful of hours. So if you're really wanting these, 12 p.m. Germany time, wickedshop.com. This looks pretty astonishing. This is the first
They're
time.
Great. I love them. So yeah, they're great. And this is a fun movie. This is another one from the 80s that, like, VHS, it was like scrimshot on your brain, and that came out. It was just, that was what you rented. That was there. Sounded cool. Clive Barker or whatever they want to throw at it. They found some kind of way to label it. Yeah. It's a fun movie, really fun, but they're great. Good company.
And these covers look wild for this.
They get it. They get it. They're a joy. I really, they're another company I would love to meet. They were here doing a lot of interviews and stuff recently. I think the day that I went in to do the commentary track of Ski Troop Attack, I think they were coming in at some point to do other work. So they got a lot of stuff coming down the pike. They're exciting to me. They're smart guys. I love their releases.
They are friends of the channel, so I can actually get you in contact with them.
Fantastic.
Laurent from Wicked Vision has been amazing. I can't wait for that Vincent Price documentary they're doing.
Ooh. Good stuff.
What's
Very
next?
Important.
Hey, that's you.
And my baby, that's Osa. That's my girl.
That's Osa.
That's my girl. And she's been so good. You haven't heard her today. She sometimes makes little appearances on my commentaries.
Well, I think we're down to our last announcement. That is
wow.
October 9th in the UK. Studio Canal is releasing Cry the Beloved Country. This is going on their Vintage Classics line, and this is with Canada Lee, Sidney Poitier. This is going to have a new 4K restoration of the film, new Canada Lee, an interview with Mona Z. Smith, an interview with Lionel Nagakane, I think is how you say it, from 1990. In Darkest Hollywood, African mirror footage of the world premiere, Africa, Alan Patton from 1962, behind-the-scenes gallery. Anything on this one that you want to share? Have you seen this one?
A long time ago. Yeah, probably when it came out. I remember enjoying it. I don't remember it being, at least when I saw it. I mean, it might have a lot deeper to it. It was a very straightforward film, but great. It was a good adaptation of the book. It was, was pretty good. There's nothing that I remember, but that's probably a great reason to watch it again.
Yeah.
Because I'll watch it now. I'll go, oh my God, I would never. But I remember, like thinking it was a good night out.
Well, after we go through all of the announcements, we normally talk about what's coming out next week, just in case people forgot. So let's go through those real quick. I normally breeze through these. A lot of 4K announcements. We got The Exorcist 4K coming next week in the Steelbook and Standard. The Trial 4K from Criterion. The Last Dragon 4K Steelbook. The Lost City of Z 4K from Shout Factory. The Ring 4K from Arrow. The Black Phone 4K. Past Lives from A24. Have you gotten to see that one yet? That's a this year release.
Nope. Not yet.
That is a beautiful movie. If you get a chance, check that one out.
Oh, I saw. You jogged my memory. I saw the Wes Anderson movie. What was it called though? Whatever the new one was. The
starts with an R, I think.
It was great though. So this is where my head's at. It's been steamrolled. But yeah, I love that. And I'm one of those guys. I love him more and more each film. That goes along. So, but when I literally saw it. I think I had.
Does not start with an R. It's Asteroid City.
Asteroid City was really brilliant, but it's also, if you want to understand Wes Anderson, that's the one. I mean, everyone's like, it's my least favorite. Oh, I don't know why, because it's this most confessional and emotional. That's a great movie, and it's hilarious, but beautifully done. And no, I would never. Especially once after he did the dummy death in Grand Budapest Hotel, he had me doubly sure. He spoke my language easily. No. Okay, sorry, that was a diversion. But yes,
you're fine.
I remembered. I saw another movie. Aaron,
that's
in a
good.
Theater. The first one since the pandemic.
Wow.
Oh yeah, no, I haven't seen anything in a theater since, and it was great. The last movie I saw when the pandemic first started, like when the boat was, infecting people around Los Angeles. I went to go see at the New Beverly, Quentin Tarantino's theater. It was like an untouched print of Blake Edwards' The Great Race, which has always been like one of my very, very favorite movies. And it was a perfect print. And that was the last movie I saw. And I knew people who were coming down with probably they had COVID. They didn't know back then, but during that, and I didn't stay near anybody during that screening. There a lot of sniffling and a lot of like, ugh. But that was the last one until I saw the Wes Anderson thing.
Interesting. Next week, we're also getting Fall 4K Steelbook. This is going to be the unrated version that wasn't out in theaters. Cocaine Bear 4K, the new live-action Little Mermaid 4K, Lost Souls. This is the Arrow site exclusive of Ringu 4K. The next Fun City Editions release, Fatal Femmes, the double feature, is coming out next week. And somehow not a lot of people have been talking about Fun City anymore now that they're not an OCN partner label. They deserve it. They were catching up with the releases for a while, but they still deserve a whole lot of attention.
Fill me in on this. I don't know what happened.
They were a partner label with Vinegar Syndrome for multiple years, and they just decided the best thing for them was to depart, and now they're associated with MVD. And if from what I hear, MVD requires all of their assets for discs to be handed in like 5 months ahead of time. And so from leaving OCN to go to MVD, there was just a slight lag. And so they were quiet for a couple of months. And now that there's everything here, people just are kind of quiet about Fun City, and they still deserve so much love.
Weird. They're great. I loved Smile, and I loved what the other one? The Frank Perry one, Rancho Deluxe. I think they did some great stuff. And Jeremy. They have a great they have perfect feel. It's weird. Like it's like Vinegar Syndrome. It's like they'll make a decision. They'll get a title. They'll hook on it, and then they'll whatever degree they can provide extras for. It always seems to be fine. It has the feel of the original experience of seeing the movie, and that's rare. They really, to me, they have a great. They get a great snapshot of like the feel of the release, the impact. They can bring that back again in the way they package everything. It's great. They're good. I like them so far, but I didn't know that they made a switch, so I'm curious. I'm glad they're back.
Yeah, they're doing great stuff. Early short films of the French New Wave is coming out next
It's gonna
week.
be good. Like drooling.
A lot of big names on there. The Dead Mother from Radiance Films, that comes out next week.
Great. I love.
Go ahead.
Gotta give any attention to any Radiance release to me.
Yes.
I don't care if I've never heard of it before, but I have. This is a great one. They're eclectic as hell. There's no way you can anticipate what they're gonna do next, but you can know that whatever is gonna be there, they're gonna make it a very a perfectly contextual experience. For they're wonderful. I did a piece on the Cosa Nostra,
Yes.
Damiano Damiani set, and I've just been asked to do another commentary for them. I never did commentary for them before, but we did me and David Nicholson Fajardo. We did a video essay for them for Day of the Owl, which is like one of my favorite Damiani films, and they did an amazing job with that. And Francesco Simeone, I think he was ex Arrow.
Yep.
And he started, but what a vision, again, class act all the way. But they asked us to do the Lige Cobb in Italy. And that was just a lot of a really moving experience, because Lige Cobb also made some bad decisions about the HUAC thing. It's fascinating to hear their stories, but he was always heartbreaking to me anyway. I mean, his performances, for the most part, when I was growing up, were kind of traumatic characters, sad, ill-fated characters. And I love, and just seeing him in The Exorcist is just really wonderful, too, very warm. So he was a favorite in my house. So I was really just, again, really pleased with doing stuff for them. They're really wonderful. Everything, literally, I can just say, I don't care what it is. If there's something by Radiance, it's going to be an eye opener.
Brand is amazing.
Some great stuff.
Bad City coming from Wilgo next week, and not much else other than some standard releases.
Sunday Woman, that's another Radiance. I think that's great. Sunday Woman's fantastic. It's Comencini, Luigi Comencini, fantastic movie, and Jacqueline Bisset, my heart. She just turned 79, and wow, she's great. I love her.
One thing I did want to say, and I keep forgetting to bring up, the Legend of Boggy Creek 4K that was announced, that will finally be shipping this week after a 2-week production delay, and I can't wait to get that. Supposedly Orbit is going to be getting it too.
That's going to be, probably one of the very first Cinetrauma experiences we'll talk about. Have you seen it ever?
I saw it a long time ago, but have you seen any of the pictures they posted of the change in the restoration?
No.
It looks to be like a brand new movie. It is probably going to be an all new experience.
I love Charles Pierce. Charles B. Pierce, he was Clint Eastwood's. He was a great production designer, and he did. Oh my God, the Outlaw Josie Wales. So that was his real gig, and then he would go off and do these side gigs. But some of the films he made, he was really one of the most important regional filmmakers, as far as I'm concerned, because he brought that to my attention. When I was in second grade, that's when they really pumped out commercials nonstop on Saturday morning during cartoons of Legend of Boggy Creek, rated G, and that got us into the theater. The parents didn't think twice. They dropped you off. That was back when 7-year-olds didn't need accompaniment for some reason in suburbia. Great. Horrifying. That movie. And on top of that, when it wasn't scaring the living shit out of you, it was sad. They have a song about the fog monster, and you want to cry. He's lonely and he's sad. And, oh my God, it's a million different ways. But there's a lot to unpack on that one. That's a classic. And don't forget, this is the guy who eventually did Town That Dreaded Sundown. So the way he kind of marks regional history of that area, he was a lot more fun. The Evictors, he's a director. So I would even say, just hoping that, like what you're saying is true, that it's going to be a really advanced transfer. I blind buy. If you never saw the movie, get all your kids together. Get your coffee ready because you're going to be up very late at night with your children. Great movie, And we, of course, went, later on, I had to go home, and we had a den which was all windows on three sides. It was all window. And in the summertime, which was when I remember seeing this one, it was either in a re-release or first release. I don't remember when, but we saw it multiple times. I didn't want to watch. I didn't want to be in that room at night when we came home because
Right.
it was so vulnerable. It was terrifying. So that it's worth it. That's a great movie. It's a great movie. Really beautifully done. And it's only looking more and more beautiful. I don't think it definitely looked like that in the theater. So good for Pamela, his daughter. She's a good ambassador for her dad.
Well, and they're keeping it mostly in house. She's done a whole lot all by herself to get it out. So
yeah,
I'm very, very stoked on it.
Yep. Good luck. It's gonna be good.
Many years in the making with only crappy bootlegs available previously, which is the only way I've ever seen it. Super excited to get my copy, says dude.
Do you have the 4x3 copy that was cropped to widescreen out of desperation to sort of relive the experience of these guys? That's one that we had to deal with.
Well, Howard, are we ready to take a time machine back to 1971, my friend?
I'm there already. I'm waiting for you.
Well, we mentioned it a little bit at the beginning. So during this time, you saw a lot of things while you were young. Looking back on it now, why is 1971 so special to you? And what, if anything, do you feel is like an overall theme for that year when you look back on it for film?
Yeah. Well, it was definitely. We talked about this. I've been seeing movies since I was born because I was with my parents. We lived in suburbia in the 60s, and they took us. There was not much to do. My dad worked thousands of hours a week, and he came home, and we went to see everything. And you could do that back then. It wasn't like, oh, I only see this guy's movie. We weren't educated. There was nothing. We didn't know. It was, you grew up with movies, so you remember the movies that you grew up with. When you're older, and when you're a kid, you get subjected to everything that you're dragged to. And and then you can have bargaining power if you do hear of a movie that you wanted to see, which I was doing probably before I was even 4. So it was movie centric. We were lucky because there were movie theaters popping up all around us, but it was still semi-rural, where I was in Stony Brook, Long Island. And don't forget, this was like the Vietnam War was going. It was 2 years before it was over, and it was a long 2 years. Yeah. And that was just when, starting in like 69, 70, they were starting to come out with a lot of allegories about Vietnam, which means that the amount of violence on screen was up to a point of atrocity, because that's what the directors were sort of they were really they were trying to make some political points, and they could only do that by showing them what your kids who are being sent off to war are experiencing. So like 1969, you're gonna start having films like The Wild Bunch, which it was fought against. I mean, that was chopped to pieces. I don't even know. It's embarrassing to look now and say this nothing is. Oh, hey, Distorted Vision. So we're neighbors, or sort of once we're neighbors. Yes, Sayville. I go there too. Hello. They, then there's. I mean, we're looking at movies now. The John Wick movie. I mean, can you imagine? There's no one's having any problems getting anything really, on camera. Right. Peckinpah, what they had to nail him to the cross, for decades. Yeah, all right, great, But I guess that's part of the allure, the history of it is that corporations were still shying away from the truth about what was happening, and to their kids in Vietnam. So. It was really up by the time 1971 came around. Not only were they were doing allegories, but they were just amplifying the violence to just as an extension of that. So even if the storylines were no longer political or metaphorical, you were now being introduced to experiences that were really traumatic and really violent. So, I mean, this is the year that Straw Dogs came out. This is the year Clockwork Orange came out. These were, major studios. These weren't, independent films. But you also had little entertainments like Willard. If anyone hasn't seen Willard, and I understand it has been extremely difficult. I think there was a VHS release before. I think it was Kino Lorber that put both of them out, with Nathaniel Thompson doing fantastic commentary work through both of the films.
I think it was Scream Factory, by the way.
Was it Scream Factory? Okay,
Yeah.
right. I see these films sometimes without the covers. I'm consuming them. So forgive me, Scream Factory. Great job on those discs. And I know the elements were really tough to find suitable elements. And I don't remember any real problems with those. Yes, there you go. Last Picture Show is going to get to all these. French Connection for sure.
Yeah.
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's good point. Play Misty for me, absolutely. And I did a feature on the Kino disc, and I think they're putting that out with a 4K on that disc. I do a feature. Me and Kevin Marr, my Destructible Man partner, we did a feature length. And it was longer. We actually had to cut it.
So good.
We cut it. Thank you. We had to do we did a dissection. There's dummy deaths in that sucker. In fact, the dummy deaths were so shocking to people, dummy death, that there was an extra on the DVD that went into it. Like, they actually talked to Jessica Walters about her being a dummy. That's wonderful. I was like, oh, pantless watching that, what can I say? And, but we really, that one we tried. In fact, I won't go into it. I was editing part of that in the hospital, but whatever. Great. That's like a perfect film. But 1971, shocking stuff. But Willard, and in 72 came Ben. Those are pretty perverse movies, and they were very heartbreaking, sad little stories. So you could get into it. It's directed by a guy who specialized in drama, old, 50s, 60s dramas. Wow. The lines for Willard with the rat attacks around the block. That's one of the ones I was telling you about. Like, I kind of remember seeing that in the summertime and waiting on a line for hours. That was baking. We were baking in the sun, waiting.
Right.
But we're talking about, like, the people on that line were sold out for that next show after waiting online for 2 hours. And then no one, we hadn't had something like that in my childhood experience until, like, The Love Bug, maybe a couple of years before, had that. As a Disney movie, so of course you're going to have that pump. But Willard was a real breakout sleeper, and it was traumatic. A really, really great, and you cared about him. Bruce Davison, just an amazing performance. So that is what, suddenly I started to, but I don't forget, I'm going to movies now. The difference was I was seeing even more. I mean, you don't realize how many films I saw a week in the theater when I was, preschool, in the theater. And then TV, of course, filled in the blanks. That's
Right.
how obsessed I was as a little kid. But then in 71, now I'm getting plopped off at our local theaters with a friend or something. And we, it's PG, we can convert, or GP. I don't think they had PG then. Maybe they did. But the thing was GP. And they were dropping us off thinking it was, like, safe for us to go. And it was just, some of these movies were just beautiful. But yes, all the ones that were listed here, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, that's what the children were like back then. Really perverse little freaks. Like, we were sick little shits. I mean, it was really sick. That's a sick movie. The book doesn't come across as ghoulish, because I think in the book there's resolution. It's like, here they are, the girl who had to be, turned into the blueberry had to get squeezed. But in the book, it's like, she's squeezed. Now she's 42 feet tall and thin. No. We didn't know if she died in the first movie. Augustus Gloop, astronomer. Did he die? The girl who drops into the furnace with the egg, did she die? I mean,
never
no,
know.
you don't know. You don't know. It is, and it's scary. I mean, there's some scary. Doesn't a chicken's head get cut off in the
Yeah,
boat ride? I
in
mean,
the boat scene. Yeah,
brilliant. I mean, this is childhood. This was great. This was 1971, and that to me, it's like but I do. It's the staple and the centerfold of those years because again, I love the 70s in total. Just because that was formative for me, and there was so much stuff. But there's stuff like Peter Collinson, who did the original Italian Job, and Up the Junction, who I've always loved, and I always get shit for it. It's one of those litmus tests again for me. It's like the minute someone just like dismisses any Peter Collinson movie for any reason, I'm like, I have nothing to listen to when you start dissing that guy. I love him. I think he's just amazing. In fact, Nathaniel and I, we did commentary. We were lucky enough to do commentary on the 10 Little Indians that he did with a bizarre performance by Oliver Reed. But that's a great cast, a lot of fun. And there's like tons of different versions of that. It's like 3 different versions, which are very worth watching. But he did a film called Fright. And Fright with Susan George, amazing, terrifying film in it. I'm not sure if it was the very first babysitter in peril, film, but it really laid on the British Gothic. I mean, she's a babysitter, and the father of the kid that she's babysitting has been institutionalized. He's a psychopath, and he escapes with absolute murder on his mind. And he is played by Ian Bannon, who's just brilliant, and he is really terrifying. And that movie milks perfectly every inch of why you would never want to be a babysitter, especially out in the boondocks somewhere. Great movie. So that was another one that's like Fright to me, pure 71, beautiful. Then you have some other fantastic things. Have you ever seen The Hospital, the Paddy Chayefsky film?
I have not. No.
By Arthur Hiller, who was, around that time was cranking out some brilliant stuff like The Out of Towners in the previous year, and Plaza Suite, which everyone likes to say, oh, it's a Neil Simon comedy. No, it's one of his. When Neil Simon writes them, it's a horror film. I mean, the Plaza Suite is hilarious, but it's so horrific, and that's another traumatic comedy, multiple story, but. This one is just a gem. The Hospital is Paddy Chayefsky, so he wrote Network and Altered States, and he's a master satirist. But kind of all his characters talking like a univoice, which is sort of like what Tarantino sort of kind of naturally sort of does as well.
Right.
There's a pentameter. There's like a certain beat to the dialogue, but. It's really one of the funniest films I'd ever seen. Even as a kid, I knew it was funny without even understanding what really was going on or what but as you get older, you grow into that movie, and it is an extremely dark, depressing film because it deals with reality. And for a GP rated film, it really went again much farther. That whole era, everything went much farther. Another movie that I remember going to a couple of times was The Hunting Party, which again, me and Nathaniel, one of the early films that we did commentary for. My God, just unprepared. I mean, I won't even go. I want to give it away too much, but there's some really shocking bits of violence that are just so perverse. The conclusion of that movie is just bizarre. But you could say it's a Wild Bunch sort of, but no, it has its own agenda, and it's definitely TV director Don Medford, who was one of the guys that just didn't. His films tried very hard not to look like TV movies, didn't use that normal lens, which everyone criticizes, and, whatever. So that's another one. And another big one that I made every member of my family take me to see it because I was too young. It was rated R. And I went I remember like 5 times during its initial release. It was Robert Aldrich's The Grissom Gang, who again, we got, Nathaniel and I and Steve Mitchell got to do the commentary track for that for Kino, and that's like, thank God, it's like closure. That's an amazing film. All Aldrich's work. That's another guy that if you hear that something is lesser or greater, you're just gonna miss out for yourself because each film's very distinct and individual.
Right.
But again, it dealt with violence as part. Again, don't forget Vietnam War. it's violence as part of now your family system, your family. You are now dealing with attitudes about violence, desperation, social desperation, and also your class, your where your stature, what how much money you have, and who you are because of that money or because of the lack of the money. It's a Depression era film, obviously triggered because of Bonnie and Clyde's success. But then you have someone like Robert Aldrich, who doesn't think at all like Warren Beatty or Arthur Penn, and he's going to come up with something totally. So he used a story called No Orchids for Miss Blandish, which was a sick little book from the 40s. But the movie version, which I think Indicator, and Kino both put out. I think it was Kino.
That sounds right. Yeah.
They again, it's a movie that I keep hearing. It's not that good. I don't know what you just don't know what movie. It's the most savage, psychopathic, perverse thing, and to see it made in an era where you don't expect them to do this,
right?
Really fantastic. So, but the Grissom Gang was an interesting adaptation of that, using all that. It was when Aldrich had his own studio after the success of The Dirty Dozen. He really wanted to be independent, and he was a real union guy. He really his whole family was Republican. He was as Dem as you could get back in that era, and he fought for the unions, and he cared about all his employees. But the experiment didn't last very well. It lasted a few films, but they're all worth watching. But Grissom Gang was a perfect 1971 movie for me. Don't forget Dirty Harry. That was another one where Don Siegel came out, and it was, everybody hated that film. That if you ever see one of those things, like, they didn't have Rotten Tomatoes back then, they had a publication called Film Facts for decades, and which I'm sure is where Rotten Tomatoes got their whole format for. But I remember seeing have the consensus, 15 reviews of like the major papers, 100% negative. Like, wow, nobody liked The Dirty Harry. They were all thinking, this is an insane fascist movie, and it was. I mean, you can't, there's no way of just, but you have a borrowed Don Siegel, who used to mainly work with Universal at that point, but Warner Brothers stole him away for Eastwood, and it's just a brilliantly directed, really brilliantly written movie. It's just, morally, you have to just either go with it or just, that's part of the experience. You walk away and you have to discuss that film, because it is it's a scary film. And he's a scary character, no matter how sympathetic they make him. It's pretty interesting. Everyone's scary in that thing. But it was very one-sided, and it was very stacked. So you really have to know what you're going in for, because there's a lot of triggers in that film for some people. But it's a brilliant movie. But boy, oh boy, that was, again, this is all I think back is like, this is the same year as all these other.
Right.
It was a hostile year, it was an ugly year, and a very ugly. Even, I mean, I'm not saying that you know what I mean? Like, the overall thing. You don't go to Straw Dogs and come out going like, "Oh, what a beautiful film! I love the way it's shot England." I mean, there's some, it's evocative, but that's not what you're thinking. You're really emotionally involved in the degree of violence and the philosophy behind it, and that was the difference. Again, back then, even guys making, like, the USC students who got jobs making like smoker porn reels, even they were trying to put something, high. They usually see movies, they make jokes about, we're making a porn film, but you have all these intellectual, college students making them, directing them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why. It's just like, people were taught at a level, and they worked it in. They couldn't help it. They were just really smart, motivated, sort of, metaphoric minded individuals. And it's really cool. So a lot of the stuff from that year, no matter how morally offensive, or not even morally offensive, but just sort of just like trigger, to your sensibilities. It was a harsh year, and just so surprising. Now, of course, I do love, like I said, I love the whole 70s, but if you had to isolate it, I think things started to really change by 71 and 72, 73. It started to mutate again, but it was like, what do you call, like an apex of, this sort of sensibility, mixing like intelligence and activism and ultimately, exploring attitudes and levels of violence that just, even for kids, just never, really was a focus before. And
Right.
I think it was something special. I mean, what have you seen that you, how did it affect you? So again, you didn't see it at the time. So
Right.
how does that, or even how does what I'm saying even make, does that form a shape in your head that you can identify with?
There's a lot, and obviously we're going to get into our list a little bit, and then we'll share. I'm sure you have a ton of honorable mentions after our list, like I do. But the years, you have to look at what in the 50s, what was that, and then the 71 started to change everything. It 70 to 71, 72 started to feel like this upward swing, because the 50s were so like wholesome, I guess, to a point, looking back from now. And then by the time we get to the middle of the 70s, everything felt sleazy. Like when I look back at the 70s, I love them because they feel gritty. They feel dirty to a point where it's just more authentic. And man, looking at my list, first off, way more European than I expected.
I didn't even go into the European films that,
both set there and filmed there, and a few, American films that were filmed in Europe. But there are so many that I just did not realize all came from this year. So, gosh, trying to get to a 5 for 1971 was like pulling teeth for me already.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and I basically, I mean, that, yeah, I just, to me, it's all equal. So, I'll just start remembering things as like A New Leaf, which was a Elaine May movie. I remember going to see that. That was a big 1971 for me. It was, and it was in keeping, even though it was rated G, it was in keeping still with what I was discussing about the sort of this philosophy of violence. It takes a classic screwball comedy, dark situation of a guy who's raised rich and he doesn't know he has no skills, nothing, and he is told that he has put himself in penury, he has no money whatsoever. So he borrows money from his uncle, and then he has to figure out a way to pay it back.
Yeah.
And his big idea is to marry someone who is rich but easy to kill. Like rated G. Easy to kill, so that he could pay his uncle back and have some money. Wow. Now, I remember going to see that movie and falling in love with Elaine May. I mean, I was hard crushing on her in that movie. She was like everything I ever wanted in a companion. I thought she was adorable and so smart, and everything she wanted to give it, and hilarious. There's like some brilliant set pieces in that are just classic. But I remember going home. My mom didn't go with us. It was my dad and my sisters. And she goes, "How'd you like it?" And I go, "It was great. It was 3 hours long." I was in my head, if it was long, it was great. I got to get it. It wasn't. It was an hour and 40 minutes. But I was like, I remember my dad laughing, And it turned out it was actually longer than 3 hours when she made it. It was 3 hours and like 15 minutes. And Paramount took it away from her, cut it in half, and tried to make it, according to them, a little bit more, commercial,
accessible or something. Yeah.
Right. Even though I can't imagine that it wasn't accessible, but it was fucking funny and brilliant. And again, you're dealing with a lot of emotions, even as a little kid, about violence, about the morality that this character has and the growth. Like, it's a love story. So you get to see him bypass this whole thing. But I don't remember. I mean, of course, they dealt with things like this, but like that's the way, the trajectory of what I was seeing back then. It just made sense at that particular point. It was like, yeah, look at that. They're even discussing it in these screwball comedies that are romantic comedies. Wow. Pretty diverse types of movie that were, like you say, still gritty and grim.
Yeah.
The TV shows also, I don't, you know, I went through so many of them, so they were just there. But movies had at that time had a real different sting to it. You know?
Yeah. Well, and again, especially that whiplash of going from the 50s to 60s, they're gonna feel much different compared to what you had been seeing. So I get that.
Yeah, I mean, the eras don't. It was weird. Like every 10 years, everything looked different. Movies look different. You know, styles look different. Maybe after the 80s, when people were wearing headbands and leg warmers, and after that, like from the 90s on, it's kind of hard unless you see like a cell phone or an old phone, plugged into the wall. There's not much to really signify change in cultural, in the way your life looks. So people are able to watch movies, I think, from like the 90s on and still think that maybe they can be, current.
Right.
But when I'm growing up in the 70s, 10 years prior, you're looking at stuff from the 60s that just don't look anything like, what's happening now. And then you go back and there's the 40s, and the 40s had a certain look, a certain style and look to it. The 30s definitely had a different look. And then before that, you had silent movies. And I hate saying it, a silent movie was as old as what the first Star Wars is now to people. I'm from an era where they would have silent movies on like public television, and I'd watch them. And I didn't know, I didn't know there's silent. You had a little explanation about my grandmother's like, oh, he didn't have sound. Okay. But it wasn't that old. It was, 50 years, 40 years. Right. You got to put things in perspective. So it was a fun time. And there were hundreds. I mean, you think this is people are going bankrupt buying all these discs. That's what it was like in a theater. Like there were hundreds and hundreds of movies in release at the same time, stacked with double features, triple features, sometimes all day stuff. The big one also, I remember. Have you ever seen the actual, not Born Losers, but the Billy Jack?
Oh, yeah. I think Shout Factory put that out. I think.
Yeah, I know that. I don't know, but that set was a bungle for various reasons. That was chopped. Some of the prints were chopped to pieces and stuff like that. Oh, whatever.
That checks out. They're Shout
Factory. They're cool. They're cool movies though, and and again, kind of left-wing, hyper-fascist left-wing. It was really weird, really cool. But that's another one. I went a day after day after day to see this one, and eventually, like Planet of the Apes, because that was another one. Was Escape from the Planet of the Apes. That's a purely traumatic film. It's a horrifying climax of that. I think it was rated G, like the second one was too. Another from '70. That was another horrific G-rated film. It was really brutal. It'd probably get like an R now, or PG-13, but it was really sick violence towards the end of that film, especially for the target audience, which were just kids. Not mainly kids, but that's who was hooking on it back then. Right. And so they would have all day thing, like they had the Go Ape thing eventually in like 1974, I think, because the TV show was going to come out, the Planet Apes TV show. So they had Go Ape, and they had all 5 films in one day. Of course, we went. You drop your kids off there, where they are, and it's, we get fat on, diabetic at the concession stand. And it was wonderful. And Billy Jack, towards, I think it was the last one, which was 77, I think it was. And I'm another guy. I didn't know. I kind of just enjoyed all of them. They all had different feel to it, and they all had different styles and influences. And I still think they're fascinating. Some people just can't deal with any of them. I'm just glad I didn't miss out. I've seen them all dozens of times, but they had the Billy Jack day. But you have to understand, one of these Billy Jack movies is 3 hours long. So and you're watching, the first one is like an American International biker flick, which is really brutal. And then the second one is an independent production. And that was savage in its own way and memorable. And then the later sequels are just sort of like, whoa, he's not sticking to any formula. So really, you had some special stuff to get used to. But that was another one. That was a big, it was like the it was taken like the anti Dirty Harry, and they both made like buckets of cash. Really popular.
Yeah, there's again trying to make this list was crazy just because of the weird genres and so many titles that I've seen so many times. So before we name everything, let's go through these. I think at the moment 4 of my top 5 still have not been said yet between either of us. So I'm excited to talk about them. Would you like to go first, or would you like to have me go first?
I'm glad that I've given my big list, but of course there's I just keep thinking of what's there, but no, I'm just ready to hear yours. I've basically blathered my main list of influences. I can't include Bed Knobs and Broomsticks because I just didn't see it in 1971. But again, that might be, I remember I watched that recently. A different version, actually. I saw a much longer version, I think, on DVD, or was it VHS even? I'm not sure. And then I went to go see it again recently, and there's like about 20-25 minutes that are gone from the version that I saw.
Oh, geez.
So yeah, they put it out, or at least most of it. Maybe some parts just couldn't be found or whatever, but that was 71, but that didn't have the same impact. Walkabout, that's another one. Nicholas Rome's Walkabout, big, but was that 70 or 71? I'm not sure.
That was 71.
It was 71. That's enough.
Yeah.
But
well, I will remind everybody when we do this, it's never like what we think are the best films. It's 5 of our favorite films. And again, with this year, you and I could have probably done 5 of these shows and had different lists every single time.
Oh yeah, well,
with all 5 of the films being
because I don't rate movies, so it's all
right.
Or all if I saw it and I remember it, then my God,
Well, my number 5, I'm going to go with a British film. Like I said, lots of European on my list for some reason. And I'm going to go with Michael Caine's Get Carter.
Oh, my God, yes. I'm so ashamed. Yes.
I love this movie. Incredible release on 4K fairly recently over in the UK. This is one that is just a wonderful crime film that is shot so just intelligently. It is put together in a way that is captivating, and which is kind of funny because this is one of those films that I imagine quite a few people probably don't love because it's different than what they're used to in crime films, and it's Michael Caine's pure perfection, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably is his best film.
Yeah. And Mike Hodges, who directed it, has had a great, really interesting career. Someone mentioned earlier, Flash Gordon. He had a lot of elasticity in his imagination. He was a really, really great director. Did a great 4-hour mystery for HBO called Dandelion Dead that I highly recommend people seeking out. I think HBO put it out on DVD themselves. Black Rainbow for Showtime was another great thriller, but he did some funny crap. He made after Get Carter, he did the other Michael Caine thing. Oh, what is it? Damn, not Peeper. Oh my goodness. Oh, I can't remember the name of the movie. People Out There, the follow-up with Michael Caine. What was it called? Mike Hodges.
Let me see if I can figure it out.
Hilarious. It's going to come to me eventually. But it could take a whole nother show to get it back to me. Anyway, Hodges was pretty elastic, so you never knew what to expect from him, but he was really, really good. And I got to talk to him once because he had done some really great stuff for, I think it was the BBC, some short crime film. Pulp, thank you, Marco, my man. Pulp, hilarious. But yeah. Thank you, Marco. He's watching my back. He was the sweetest guy I've ever talked to. Just didn't expect after Get Carter.
Right.
Oh God, what a just a cool guy, a really great guy. And I didn't know how old he was, but I wish he had another 10, 20 years of films behind him. Because my God, but there is a moment in Get Carter, I won't say it, but you just do not expect that you're going to care for this guy. And there's a moment where I still just like can't believe it is pure cinema, and it really just maneuvered you into another emotional realm you never expected. That's why it's just brilliant. Yes, Deaf Crocodile. Yes, I agree. BFI UHD is gorgeous. Great disc. All right, now shame me again. Keep going.
The next one is one that has, just like you listed, it influenced a lot of the films that I ended up loving. Bava's A Bay of Blood.
Absolutely, and that actually is on my list.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, I think I didn't mention it mainly because I think I saw it towards like the end of '72, because it didn't play by me. I didn't know it because it was called Twitch of the Death Nerve.
Twitch of the Death Nerve.
I do think, from what I had been reading, that it may hold like the world record of the film with most release titles internationally.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if that still holds, but that I've seen that mentioned a couple of times just recently, and I agree. It's an amazing film. I know Bava really thought it was like almost like a masterpiece. It was very witty, and I remember the first time. The reason why I knew to go was a great magazine, which was like it was for slightly older, for college students, the Castle of Frankenstein. And they were reviewing R-rated movies, or Famous Monsters of Filmland. They might mention some stuff, but they wouldn't emphasize it. But of course, they had review sections. And I'm not sure if it was Joe Dante doing these capsules or they were already starting to get a lot of other writers to contribute. But I remember their recommendation of Twitch of the Death Nerve. And of course, you read a review in one of those magazines, and like, bam, you're looking every day. Right. You're hoping it's going to pop up in front of your face.
Especially with that title.
And it did, and it played with The Creeping Flesh, which was a great, I think, Amicus title with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. And that was an elegant film. Very elegant, ghoulish, but elegant little armor. And how, but that's how they would do it. They would sometimes put like a cool PG horror film with like this like really hard R, and I had never seen anything like that. A cool movie. And Bava's just great.
Well, and for people that have never seen it, which supposedly it's pretty underseen. It's an interesting story too, because it's a bunch of people trying to take out individuals that are in line to get an inheritance, and there's a lot of deaths in this. And you'll notice you've seen some of the deaths prior, probably because they are lifted scene for scene in like Friday the 13th 1 and 2, and it's so well made. It's shot really interestingly, and it's basically like the birth of the slasher in a way, because it's the first one that really had that full on, the entire thing has this now what we know is all of the tropes, and it's just so well made and
funny as shit. It's really witty. Like, Bob is a witty guy. He's really, really smart, funny guy. So that was another joy. It's another one where, again, you see it when you're a kid and you're watching it like this. You're scared, but 30, 40 years later, you're watching it, you're laughing your head off, and you think, wow, this is a smart movie. But there's some great stuff in there. The first like 10 minutes of that film, I think there's like 2 or 3 deaths within the first 5 or 10 minutes that are hilarious. They're ghoulish as hell. I mean, you're sitting there, but what a beautiful, it's such a classy, beautiful film that you're shocked, constantly. It was just a smart film. Good. You embarrassed me second or third time already. Good. Keep going.
I can't remember if this one was said or not. This one may have been, but number 3 for me is one that I saw for the first time probably about 2.5 years ago and fell in love with it. Now I've watched it 3 or 4 times. Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
My man, beautiful John Hancock. I'm happy to say I'm friends with John. He is one of my favorite filmmakers. One of my very favorite American filmmakers, and I was lucky enough to feel like I grew up with his movies, because they right from the outset, and there's a cool backstory to that. I mean, a friend of mine, David Cano, wrote a really good thing for Fangoria about the making of that, and it was really eye-opening. And then after that, there's so many little augmentations to the stories, but I love every minute of that movie. That was actually my 7th birthday party, And that night there was a lot of calls from the kids' parents to my mom. Like, what did like I said, crying. That's another one I was gonna. That's prime for Cinetrauma. But boy, oh boy, oh, spooky movie and just beautifully done. I think it was supposed to have been originally. I think it was supposed to have been somewhat satirical or humorous, or that the script was just very different. But yeah, but and John's movies are. It doesn't matter what genre they are. He did Bang the Drum Slowly after that. He did Baby Blue Marine with Jan Michael Vincent, and one that I think everybody should see from '79, I think, was California Dreaming, a real heartbreaker with great Seymour Cassell, who's in this Cassavetes film. He's brilliant in that too. But yeah, I love John Hancock. I really do, and he can do no wrong. And lately, I mean, he's done stuff very independently, and it's with his late wife, also Dorothy Tristan, who was actually in the movie that was it's one we hadn't discussed yet from '71, but she was really brilliant. She's always brilliant in Clute. She plays like another hooker in Clute from '71, and that is I think that was sort of like, I'm not sure if it shared influence from Bird with the Crystal Plumage, which I think was '70. I'm not sure if that was probably, that might have been '71. I'm not sure, but that definitely, to me, has very strong Giallo references, and I know I nobody wants to hear that word anymore. Like, oh, is it American Giallo? But these movies have influence. It's not, may not be conscious. It may not be, the same intent, but most definitely. And if you listen to Michael Small, I think it's Michael Small's score, it definitely has, some Morricone text, and of course the use of the tape to tape, reels being shown. That's something which just goes into, I think, even Deep Red a few years later, So there's some very scary things in Clue too. But Dorothy Tristan, who was John Hancock's eventual wife, she had been married to a mentor of mine, Aram Avakian, but she married John. She didn't do too bad. She's a great writer. She wrote the last couple of movies that they did together, and purely independently financed. It's just a wonderful story. But yeah, good pick. Great movie, scary as shit, and also really human, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really, again, really human. And this is a movie, like, people take it for granted. This is like, they're shooting, 15 to 18 hour days to get this stuff done, and they're making it seem real, and people take it for granted. I mean, wow, I never take it for granted. I'm always like, after I experience it, I was like, wow, how the hell did you do that for Let's Scare Jessica to death? Yeah. But yeah, great. Batting 1,000 now.
It's a bit of a slow movie, but it is so haunting, and the ending is great. Super underrated acting in that one too.
Yeah, it's deliberately paced. It's paced well. It's scary.
I wanted to throw out there, we were just talking about some Argento stuff. I don't have them on my list, but two Argento films from '71. We got Four Flies on Grey Velvet and Cat o' Nine Tails. Both came out in the same year.
I thought Four Flies was '72.
Here it was '72. The original release was '71.
Okay, that I never know. Yeah. Great movies. Really, both of them are great.
In the same year. It's wild.
I love Cat o' Nine Tails too. No one ever wants to talk about that one. I'm like, that's, for a long time, that was like my favorite Argento. Technically, I think it's one of his most beautifully shot films. And then after, in '73, he did, thank God, Severin finally released this, but what an amazing film. The 5 Days. And that probably is my personal favorite Argento of all time, and I think it has a lot of similarities with, and I think Argento may have had something to do with 1900, Bertolucci's 1900. It's sort of like an oddball companion piece to it, a little more comic, but that's one I do not ignore that movie, especially if you like Argento and you're like, I don't want to see a comedy by him. This was no misfire. It's just an incredibly regional film. It's an underspoken piece of Italian history. Yeah. Good. 5 Days is excellent spaghetti. Yes, it is. I'm glad to hear that. It's great. Yeah, I love that. I love it. I love that movie. Luigi Cavallo, who shot Deep Red and who was camera on La Ventura. Oh my God, you just really can't. You can't get better than that. Really brilliant stuff.
Number 2 on my list is one that we've talked about up and down quite a few times already, but I got to go with the almost perfection of Straw Dogs. This movie, the first time I saw it, blew me away. I went into it going, "Oh, it's from the '70s, not going to be that violent." Well,
and it was probably cut still when you saw it.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been dropping a little bit extra in over the years. Finally, I think it's all out there. But yeah, no, great, really great movie.
Great movie, incredible central performance, beautiful cinematography. Just
John Coquillon, right? John Coquillon.
Yeah.
He's was his guy for a long time. Yeah, amazing guy. Cool thing about Straw Dogs, and I've never had any answers about it. One, I really love. I am huge fan of David Zelig Goodman, the screenwriter of that. Huge fan of him. Again, I don't know. In the '70s, he was like a target. I know, in reviews, and I don't understand why. He's been connected. I've tried to be connected with as many of these releases with his scripts as possible, like March or Die. I did stuff for the imprint disc, but David Zelig Goodman, the work he did on Straw Dogs, because I read the original book. I have the original book. Boy, did he and Peckinpah really no stone unturned with the psychological, metaphorical. It's definitely not a movie. It's definitely not a movie that's exploitative. It's not designed to entertain in that type of prurient manner. It's an intellectual discussion about violence and when you employ it. I mean, it's political. It's one of those great moments in 1971. I'm glad that's the cherry on your cake, because I think you're right. I mean, I totally agree. And it means something different to everybody who goes through it. It's depending on when you saw it. You saw it. No, how old were you when you first saw it? Like, did you just say?
Probably late teens, maybe.
Wow! Oh my! Wow! Yeah, you got kids. How old are they? Take them now. Show them now. They got to be like
8-year-old and a 7-year-old. Yeah.
Well, they're a little too old, so you missed out. You really. Yeah, my parents. No. 7 years old, perfect. My mom fight. She had to explain. I told you, explain to these guys. If he's old enough to ask to see the movie, he's old enough to see it. I mean, oh God, my mama, love you. Like, God, everything. Brutal. Oh, okay. This might really be my number one for 1971.
Interesting. I wonder if it's the one that I was about to say. Let's see.
Go ahead. No, I defer.
No,
to you
now I wanted to see if it was the same. We were talking about violence and what brings it on. My number one had to be the super subversive Ken Russell's The Devils. I mean, this is the one for me.
Mine was going to be Ken Russell's The Devils and The Boyfriend. They're the two-headed dragon. That is absolutely good man. Yeah. And I did see it first run.
Wow.
And I remember reviews being hostile. And I'm really hostile. And of course, my family, it was my mom and my grandmother. We went to see that. Not my dad, and he was working, and my sisters, no. But it was Aldous Huxley. So it was like, look, he didn't even get, that movie didn't even uncut. It didn't even dare. Paul Berryman, good man, loves both The Devils and The Boyfriend. That film, that great. Oh, good Ken Russell fans here. God bless you. A genius as far as I'm concerned. He is the genius's genius because he's funny and he's three-dimensional and he haunts me still. I will go into
innovative.
That
yeah,
he haunts me. He visits periodically, and I'll say my dreams, but they don't feel like dreams. But that's for our Ken Russell episode. Yeah, it's an amazing film and brilliantly satiric, but great cast. I mean, of other great artists like Christopher Loge and Dudley Sutton. I mean, the cast is incredible. The Boyfriend was made to, I don't know if it was intentional, but it came off this way as almost an apology to superficial, sensitive, hypersensitive critics who, I don't know, didn't know any better. And it was rated G, and it was a musical, and I remember seeing that. And there were, I think, and what's ironic and sad is both of them were hideously butchered for their releases internationally. Terribly, Stan Giese. Devil's good. The Boyfriend is a perfect complement to The Devils in every way possible. And I remember that the very, very end of it was just hilarious. I mean, and I saw that, it was just, we were so little and it worked fine. I mean, there was no, The Devils, in fact, I remember distinctly not being terribly traumatized by. I think the climax is where, again, I was very upset at that.
Right.
I didn't get all the, the metaphors and wit and satire all the way through. I was starting to be aware of it. I was starting to feel like more of an adult, perception. But yeah, I agree. What a great choice. Good for you. Yeah, it's amazing.
How about the set pieces in that movie? It's not something that ever gets a lot of attention, but man, some of the visuals in that are so stark. And when when somebody tries to explain the storyline, it's almost exactly what you would picture in your head of what would be happening in the background, and it's so perfect.
Yeah, and very studied. Like, I mean, Russell. I mean, with his ideas of music and art, and how he, incorporating his knowledge of art and the composition of medieval art, and the subjects of medieval art and music. They all work their way behind the scenes in that film. It's so much more. His films are so complex that, of course, he was going to be damned. From the very beginning, he'll have his little handful of activists, the pro-Russellians, and then you'll have people who just don't find the value in him. And maybe that's not so much the case anymore, because his stuff looks so different. Like you said, right. But I thought the one he did in '72, of course, I think is often, because of The Devils, I'm so tempted to say that that Savage Messiah is his masterpiece, but again, that's for another day. Savage Messiah breaks my heart in all sorts of ways, and that's the one that got his best reviews at the time, because it was they felt it was restrained. It's not restrained; it's pure Ken Russell, but it is, I think, more of sort of the underside of the abrased side of his soul at that time. And if you haven't seen it yet, I can't recommend it enough. I was so little, as my dad used to take me to this great bookstore, which downstairs was an old bookstore, but downstairs they had the film books, and one of them was the book, which I think it was letters maybe between the two people, two main characters in the film, and it was a movie tie-in to Savage Messiah, and that's how I found out about Savage Messiah, was the book. And it was playing, and my mom went, and we were both like crying. I remember we were really wrapped up in that. So it's another one, sort of like, what a perfect panorama he gave you with The Devils, The Boyfriend, and then Savage Messiah. Yeah. Wow, it was pure gifts. We were gifted those movies, because there's no reason why they should have gotten made. You really have to thank some people for being persistent, and hopefully one day, I don't know how it's going to happen, but hopefully we will get an uncut Devils, because even the bootleg that bravely attempts to restore as much as possible that was available in some kind of usable media. I mean, that's the best one you can probably get right now, but it's still longer. It's not long. It's still 113 minutes, but there's still stuff that's maybe a little slightly out of order, and needs to still be put back in. But
Yep.
wow, and if you see the theatrical release, and then you see this, what's the closest to the actual vision, they cut his heart out. They cut his soul out. It's not the same movie. If anything, there's a lot of visual foreshadowing to what you see in Tommy, and that's not in the American theatrical.
Right.
And it's barely in the British, which was slightly longer, but also cut. So if there are any hardcore Tommy fans, which again, you start going, well, maybe that's his masterpiece. It's just they're so complex. How can how do you
He's
make
done
these
so many
things?
great things, though.
How the hell do you do that? He is like a brain that just happened to have a body casing. I think that the body held him back. The brain was on.
Well, and for somebody that was born in 27, we are like very lucky to get everything we got out of that dude.
Yeah. I just wish there was more. He was a one of a kind, But yeah, I thoroughly endorse the number one on that one. That's great. Yes, for sure.
Well, did you have an actual top five? Because I know you spoke on yours. Did you want to run through what they were? Real
I
quick?
don't. It's hard. I really, it's like I don't think like that at all. I mean, whatever
Right.
I said was like these are the ones that like were important. I'm sure you'll start listing. It's like you could list anything from that era. I mean, from that era. I mean, I'm one of these guys that infuriates people because it's like I'm not being like, blanketly gushing. It's just I don't know how these things get made, and we're so lucky they stay in my head and they've just been part of me. And so yeah, keep naming movies and I'll just keep
Let's see. The rest of my I have 10 honorable mentions, I guess.
Right.
Next up was Clute. This was the number 6 on my list. This almost took over Get Carter a couple times.
Wow.
Love
Yeah,
this
I can
movie.
understand that. I could dig that. Nothing really looks like Clute either. Gordon Willis is on a fire. It's like he's so young.
And that Criterion Blue is incredible. They did really well by that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Next, we talked about this one slightly, but Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. This is just
great
perfect.
movie.
Yeah,
great movie. Yeah.
We didn't say much about it, but A Clockwork Orange. Nowhere near my favorite Kubrick, but it's a great movie.
What can I say? To me, again, it's like, where did that come from? Pretty amazing. And this, you're talking Anthony Burgess, you're talking Kubrick's adaptation of Anthony Burgess, you're talking about, I believe, John Alcott, who was, I think, Jeffrey Unsworth's cameraman and graduated from 2001 to now direct. And that's what happens with Kubrick's assistant cameras or DPs. They always end up being Douglas Milsom, the same thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When that came out, we were just stunned, really stunned. There was nothing like it, and the fact that it was, and they even had it in the trailer. They used the trailer's great. The original trailer where they're flashing words, like subliminal flashes of words, violent, and then they show an image, have a semi-clip. Amusing was one of the words they used in the trailer, and that stays with you because the movie is a satire. It's funny. So even as a kid, when you're not like again watching it like this, because there's no way of discussing what your brain at the age of 6 or 7 is absorbing from that film. That really came later when it was on HBO. I think I remember in the late 70s, like 78, winter 78. There was nothing like that. Same thing with Carnal Knowledge. Mike Nichols' Carnal Knowledge was another one that I remember at the same time. I remember seeing it with my mom, and I didn't know what was going on. Again, if it sounded funny, I would laugh. If it sounded dramatic, I would try and understand. I would ask questions. She would tell me. But that film was yanked from so many local theaters, people referring to it as pornography. And I only remember that happening one other time was in 74. Bertrand Blier did Going Places. And that was another one where it just went way, way too far for some people. And I remember I remember even the evening on HBO. That stigma never left. When Going Places was on HBO, I think it's the same thing in 78 or 79. We watched it once. We had seen it in the theater years before, like 5 years earlier.
Right.
But then the second time we went to watch it again with more of the family members were home, so they wanted to watch it. It was replaced. It was pulled from HBO because people complained
Oh,
that it was.
geez.
And what did they replace it with? This was brilliant. Bring me the head of Alfredo Garcia. Win-win. I was like, this is just genius. So these 1974 classics were still causing trouble,
Right.
on HBO now. Home box office as opposed to local box office. Yeah, it was pretty cool. But Clockwork Orange. It's a brilliant movie. I can't rate Kubrick either. There's no way. Like Barry Lyndon for a long time, I just thought, well, that was it for me. It went everywhere for me all at once. It was the Wonkavator. It just goes anywhere and lands wherever it has to. But I can't do that anymore. So Clockwork Orange is just like, who the hell else would have ever made that? So again, it's a gift.
Kubrick's one of those ones that it seems like you could ask me every week and I'd have a different answer for which of his films was the most effective for me.
Yeah. The Mood Ring. He's substantial enough.
I guess my next one, I had to go with my guardian angel here and bring up Mr. Vincent Price and the Abominable Dr. Five.
Absolutely.
Love that movie.
And when did you see that?
Gosh, I think that one was probably very early, like one of those late night showings that they used to
good
double feature of both of them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Probably like not quite teens, but like early adolescent.
Right. Yeah, that's another one. 6 years old, 7 years old. Yeah. The second one, I felt bad because there was some great stuff in it. And as I got older, I started noticing that the continuity was just like kind of all over the place. And then of course, I find out Robert Fust, it was taken away from him by Arkoff and chopped to pieces and, tried. And I'm like, wow, that is a tragedy because the first one was so fun. All his movies are so, and he was a production designer. So he knew how to really convey some difficult humor and difficult, because they're both highly satiric, but there's a lot of great ideas. And there was no reason why that had to be tampered with, he has such a unique style and pace. And of course, you've probably seen the final program. And Devil's Reign, which I think people fight themselves over. That's another thing I can't stand is hearing the guilty pleasure.
I hate that term.
If I did heroin and I thought it was great, then maybe I could call that a guilty pleasure. I don't want that. There's enough in my system to deal with, but that's a guilty pleasure. I have no guilt over any of these things, but no, it's a beautiful movie, and it's so funny. I remember again, when I was like in second grade at that point, I tried to write a story. I wanted to write, and I was so completely untalented at writing. All I did was basically write what I remembered from Dr. Fives. So I was like, oh, and my mother was called. They were concerned. Did you ever have when you were in first and second grade? You have you'd write something and then they would put remember the paper clip, these little cards with words that you misspelled.
Oh yeah.
And I had a ton, and they were blood, vampire. I wrote a story called the two vampires, and of course years later I'm that's why I fall in love with Jean Roland. It's that's what I was thinking of.
Right.
Oh yeah. And then Jean Roland you can throw in. Was that what was that one? Was that this one from 71 also was so beautiful. Not Rape of the Vampire. Was it Rape of the Vampire? No. No. It was. Oh my gosh! That year. Please, yeah. It's perfect. Oh my God, this is what happens when you hit this age.
It is taking forever to load. 71 was Shiver of the Vampires. And then maybe the one that you saw in 71, The Nude Vampire.
No, that's earlier. After Shiver. What's the
After
one
Shiver is Requiem for a Vampire.
Requiem for a Vampire.
That one is 72.
Was it?
Yeah.
I never knew that. I always thought it was 71. Okay, I'll allow you that.
I guess I'm on my number 10 if we're going through this whole thing. Daughters of Darkness. Beautiful, lovely backgrounds. Such a out there film. The entire thing is just great. And then the climactic struggle is just shot so perfectly. Love that movie.
Got a great Belgian sense of humor too. You know, it's really, he's great. A lot of his films are wonderful. Malpertuis from the next year is really great also. There's 2 different versions of that. Both of them are really worth seeing. He's brilliant. I actually think he may still be on Facebook. I'm not sure, but he's definitely, he's just brilliant.
Wow.
Great to listen to. Yeah. Cool guy.
We've already talked about this one. Willard is my next one.
Good.
Love Willard. It's such an underrated movie. Not enough people have seen this to be able to talk about it, but the ones that do.
Now it was a blockbuster then.
Right.
Like I said, it was really they called it the Summer of Willard. It was such a huge hit. Now you're right. It's
so weird.
Nobody's seen it.
Right.
Elements never existed for decent. It's the VHS. I think it might have been Yukisa. It was kind of too late for people to remember that it was a popular movie at one point. Boy, was it popular. It was everywhere for years.
That's wild.
Prince just never left the theaters. They just would stick it with something else over the years. And you'd see a double, triple features. Willard review there. Ben is another one from the next year. And that was just more weird. That was weird because that's Phil Carlson who, did Walking Tall after that. And, he was same producer, Mort Briskin. But I actually did a fan edit of that a long time ago where I cut out all the rats. And I just made it a story about just this invalided kid who has the imagination of Ben and everything. So I have to find that. I don't know if it still exists, but I remember being very proud of that sculpting of the movie because it was in the movie, and it was very bizarre. It's so weird. There's a puppet thing goes on there, really strange. And Lee Harcourt Montgomery, really good actor. There's another really good, but really perversely violent, as all Phil Carlson is. For he's a shocker. But Willard was different. Right? Wasn't that sad? I think Willard was a really sad movie, very tragic movie. Bruce Davidson's just brilliant. I mean, it's nothing. He's great, and also in Ulzana's Raid, the Robert Aldrich Western, which had it's a lot to unpack with that film too. But he was just really great. But Willard makes me cry. Really sad movie. But good list.
I happen to have one close to me in physical that was next on my list. Lizard in a Woman's Skin. Fulci. This is one I saw. This is one of the first Fulcis I saw. I think I saw.
Oh, good! Yay! That's good to hear.
I think I saw Don't Torture a Duckling, and then I saw this one, and then I went into the big boys. So yeah.
Oh, they're amazing. I mean, those are that's like his masterpieces, along with Beatrice Cenci. That's really amazing stuff. Yeah, listen to the soundtrack. My God, like this. I don't even know what you call it. Musique concrete. I don't know what that is. It's brilliant Morricone soundtrack. That was the one where they were. Carlo Rambaldi did the split dogs scene, and then they thought that was real, and there was a lawsuit. And, the first time I met Lucio was in Rome at the Fanta Festival. We were supposed to be showing my film, Original Sins, who I did with Matthew Howe and Kevin Marr was in it. And I saw him. I was coming out of Lizard in a Woman's Skin. They projected again like a pristine print. Wasn't in English, but I had met friends at the festival already who were translating stuff for me. They were happy to do that. They were great. So I had seen that, and there was Lucio in the lobby, and it was crazy. He looked like he was wearing like pajamas. It was the strangest thing ever. I mean, it was very odd. but I was so nervous because I don't go up to my idols. You know, it's hard for
Right.
me to go up. I'm pretty shy with that. And I went up to him and I introduced myself because he was a juror and my film was, being, it was in competition. So I went up and introduced myself, and then I told him that I just came out of seeing this print. I just said, my God, this is just I can't even tell. I said, I was like, I'm shaking because I wasn't prepared for that emotional response from this particular film.
Right.
And I was really shaking, and he hadn't said a word to me yet, but he just reaches out and he just hugs me for and he had I guess a girlfriend or a woman with him, very sweet, and she was looking at us like, oh, like, but it went on for so long. It was like a heartfelt, and that's when I had that we started our unfortunately very brief relationship because he didn't last. He was very severe diabetic,
Right.
and he didn't last more than 2 more years, I think. So it was horrifying, loss. But he was just, to me, a very sweet guy, a brilliant guy, and I don't know. I hear these stories about him, and I just go, "You fucked up. Obviously, something about you fucked it up. You fucked up with him. I don't know." To me, he was a very sweet. He loved his daughter Antonella. They were inseparable, and I loved their relationship. He was losing him so young. I mean, he was in his 60s. I remember I couldn't even call her to give condolences. I couldn't even talk for a long time. He was just someone very special, and he really was supportive. And I can't even describe it. But he was a lot to me. I don't know what stories exist outside of what I know about him, but I don't know. I always treated him like he was like my second dad. That kind of relationship. Very brief though, but he was wonderful. And I hope from what I hear, he was like that with other people too. I mean, he was just wonderful. But his films are great, and they like we're talking about all these directors. He had passages where they'd be one style and he would change. And no one talks about these great comedies that he did for Franco and Ciccio. I still want to try and get a box set of those guys. They're brilliant. My God. Oh, those secret agents will kill you. That will hospitalize you. There's a 10-minute sequence in those secret agents involving a sunburn and getting out of a unitard bathing suit for 10 minutes. Almost hospitalized me. It's one of the funniest things. It's just brilliant direction. Great direction. Right out of the gate. His first movie as a director, right out of the gate, just solid, technically solid, and does what it's supposed to do. Great musical comedies, great westerns, brutal, way beyond their time. I mean, they're shockers, but they're really good. And even Contraband, I think, is a brilliant movie. I don't even know why that's not considered like what. Maybe now it is. It just came out on Blu-ray, right? I mean, Blue Underground had it on DVD for a long time, which was thank God. But who put that out?
Cauldron.
Oh, Cauldron. Oh, good.
Yeah.
He's great. I'm glad. Yeah, good mention for sure.
I've got 3 more, and we'll try to go through these quickly, and then we can call it a night. My next one that gets very little love, which I think is way, way. I don't even know how to go down this path, but way more intellectual, I guess, than people give some of the other films around that time credit for. The Velvet Vampire.
Oh yeah, great movie.
Love this movie, and so few people talk about it. And I think one of the reasons right now this whole home video sphere, because Scream Factory put out 1,000 copies of it, and that's it. And now nobody else can get it. So.
Oh wow. Okay. I know they were thinking of remaking it at some point a couple of years ago. That they were passing around, but I don't see why they would even.
Interesting.
It wouldn't be the same thing. The movie is so like you say, so unique and dreamlike, and I wouldn't even. Why would I in name only? Why would I want to even check that out unless it's just good on its own? But I mean, as Velvet Vampire, what a unique film, beautiful movie. Yes, I agree with Maddie K. 555. Yes, I would say that and Devil, Twilight Darkness, great double. I agree.
Not many comedies on my list, but I had to throw in, and now for something completely different.
Oh, wow.
That was 71.
Yeah. I actually saw that in the theater too. We didn't know. I don't know if I saw it in 71 though. Was that released in 71 here?
Yeah, the
It
original one. Yeah.
was, huh? Because I don't think Monty Python was on air until like 74
Oh,
in
interesting.
America. I'm not sure about that, but I'm pretty sure. I somehow remember it being on air in like 73.
I'll check.
I haven't, the facts when I was researching it didn't support that. But yeah, I saw that. Talk about no budget. That movie had that, but had what a great stink to that film. Had a really cool, and the theater I saw it
72 in the States.
on TV or the movie.
It just says August 22nd of 72 and now for something completely different.
But the TV series, I'm not sure if that was even out yet. That which is weird. But I kind of remember it being on at 73, but I probably am wrong. It's probably 74 by that point. Yeah, I mean, here in the States, we never experienced anything like them at all. That's
right.
That was totally new. I mean,
something completely different.
Yeah, it really fit its. And it was that movie. I think they were already hoping that the show would end.
Yeah.
I think they were on in England for a while at that point, like 69 or something, and they came from different other comedy shows with different, not as blunt as the segues are very blunt,
right?
And Monty Python, but the shows, it's weird to see them in some of their earlier shows, again playing against each other, the different comedy teams, and it's so like Carol Burnett show. It's like it's weird, like soft, funny skits, but not so blunt, not so hard. So it's weird if you're really immersed in them first, and then you start seeing where they came from. You're like, oh my God, like they must have been itching to get the hell out. But that's a good one too. That's a weird memory too. I remember seeing that in the same theater where we saw Willy Wonka for the first time, and it was like such a rundown theater. It was like an old bijou, so it had that feel to it, but there was like crap on the floor from 1929. I mean, this thing was never cleaned, but that's where I saw that for the first time, that theater, where your shoes would stick to the floor. They just never cleaned it, spilled soda from decades, from the silent era. But it was, that's a great, good list, my friend. That's a good one.
Last one I had is Duel. Not much said about that, but it's an interesting one. It's about to get a brand new 4K release here in 2 months, and I hope it looks great.
Yeah, I mean that's always amazing movie. That's one I just don't remember ever being in the theater. I never saw it in the theater. I saw it on TV, and I remember it being a big deal, but I don't know if it came out here first in a theater, or if that was, I'm pretty sure
it was TV.
I'm pretty sure it was a TV movie originally, and then they just threw in like a few extra minutes or something like that.
Right.
The Duel. I think I haven't seen the TV version, probably since it aired, but I've only seen I guess it's I think it's an expanded version, the theatrical one. Probably had to be, because if it was for TV, it was probably 74 minutes. That was ABC TV's like law. It had to fit into a 90-minute slot, so it was always 74. But another great. Again, all these movies are so. Even if they were like, oh my God, how can I forget this one? The Light at the Edge of the World. Another good friend of mine, late director, so I miss him, was Kevin Billington, who did that. He was another. These guys who made that movie, my God, really. Okay, Land of Silence. Yeah, Herzog's Land of Silence and Darkness. I agree. Good one. That's another one. Yul Brynner and Kirk Douglas, an outrageously violent, traumatic film. Jules Verne. Oh, great. It's like, let's go. Oh God, 6 years old, just traumatized. And that's another one ripe for discussion. But God, so much in 71. Literally. And this is nothing.
Right.
This is handfuls we're talking.
This is scratching the surface. There was I think I was just looking through like historical records. There was one list I found that was 3,500 films long from 71.
Yep. How many now? Right. I don't know. A couple of dozen. I don't know how many. Do we even crack 100 anymore in America?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We still get around 300 that are even that are ran theatrically even. So.
Well, all right. But they're not all memorable like the ones we got. I don't know what's happening. I mean, I guess they just have to be seen. You know?
How do you feel about the last movie, the Dennis Hopper, 1971?
I think it's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. I again, intention. Who the hell knows? But again, it's one of those movies that always made sense to me. It seemed I watch it, made sense the first time I saw it, and I know people who were actually trying to do a legitimate reconstruction of that, a chronological reconstruction of it, the way it actually was intended to be chronological. It wasn't, it really was supposed to be, a film that made more conventional sense, but but they never did it. I guess it was, again, it's Universal. They would have, I think, Universal just put the kibosh on it.
Right.
They didn't do it, but it was a great idea, and I was. I had seen a lot of the stuff they were doing for it. That would have been really cool. But great movie. I love early Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, and Dennis has gotten a lot of love on physical media over the last few years, which is so
Out of the
nice
Blue.
to see.
Which I think he took over. Out of the Blue was with Joyce Chopra, I think, originally.
Yeah, and
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I know the extras in that disc are phenomenal. I want to go through that again. I was done in a haze. I didn't have time to. Well, I didn't have time to watch everything, but I love everybody who worked on that disc. I love Linda Mance, and I just think, yep, Blood on Satan's Claw. That's a cool movie. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was really wonderful. When I was in England, screening, a work in progress screening of my Joe Meek documentary back in, I don't know, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I was invited. This was like the greatest night of my life. I was invited to a birthday dinner for an editor, Noreen Ackland. And I heard the name and I'm like, are you kidding me? She said, like, oh, you've heard of Noreen? So she edited Michael Powell's Peeping Tom. And they're like, she did. And I said, and she worked for him for quite a few years as an assistant editor. She did. She'd love to meet you. So I went and they seated me next to her. Of course, she had all her friends there, but no, they seated me next to her. And she was like, in maybe her late 80s at the time, which again, now it's like the new 40s, but she was, she's, bent over and whatever. And I was talking with her. She couldn't believe that I knew who she was, and that I knew who she was. I was ready. I told her, I'm like ready to propose marriage to you. I said, I don't know what this is. I said, I know. And the thing was, she was married to an ironically named Richard Best, who was really one of the best editors in England. And there's a lot of great editors. He was brilliant and very eclectic, and he did Blood on Satan's Claw. And I think the Dam Busters also. And I was telling this, and she's just looking at me like, she was, yes, he was a wonderful editor. How do you know that? It's like she was like so like suddenly like, wow, like yeah, I'm so proud. I was so proud of him, but he passed away. And I go, well, not lucky for him, but maybe lucky for me. And I just like took her hand, and she's like, oh, you're wicked. You're just like Mickey, like Michael Powell.
Right.
He was very wicked. You're very wicked. And I'm like, no, I mean it. I want to marry you. I was like, please. I don't know what to say. You are. So that was great. But yeah, but Richard Best, my God, talk about taking things for granted. People's jobs. And like, these are jobs. It's like how you unscrew their brain, and you're just getting their brain out. All these brains just leaking all over the screen. Wild. It's just wild, Yeah, I mean, untapped genius everywhere. It's just people have to have the proper exposure to it. Not everybody can afford all these things, and that's also kind of a sad thing. But I like, they're working it in with I guess some streaming places like Shudder or but
Yeah.
that's genre stuff. There's still so much stuff that you have to hear about and then decide. That's why boutique labels are really brave. And I know you've probably gone through this every show. That's the whole point. Is that it's either just suicide or thank you. What can you do?
Right.
But you definitely have to thank all these people for trying so hard. And who would have thought now the amount of great stuff being unearthed?
Yeah.
Ah, man. Really,
I mean,
really.
look, tonight we had, I think, like 35, 37 announcements. This is a very slow week right now. 37 announcements is very slow. That's incredible.
Yeah. Wow.
It's an incredible time.
Thank you, sir, for keeping it going.
Well, thank you
Who
for
would know?
coming. I mean, this has been amazing to have just your presence here. Like,
I appreciate that, and everyone who's here, thank you so much. That was great. I like watching. It's too bad. Again, I would like to see your heads pop up and some talking. I would like to see keep up with all the, This is like one of those things. We're gonna have to move this to OnlyFans and do this nude. But thank you, guys. I'm going to say thank you, everybody, and I know a lot of you. So, but nice meeting some of you guys for the first time too. Really appreciate it. No, yeah, definitely, DC. I mean, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful. Good to hear some perspective, and it's good to hear that the stuff really gives the esoterica. These were blockbusters back then. Oh, I hope so. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Jude McKenna. Look at this.
Everybody is so about
it. So we'll go get ice cream. It's weird, and it's weird for me because I remember a lot of these movies were hits. And time moves on, but you don't think about it. So you start thinking like I sound like my dad or my grandma. Wow. You keep. This is life. It's all perspective, and it's all gonna move ahead. But something. Keep up the good work, guys. The labels are just making my heart pump. These are films. I remember seeing a show just recently that you did. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't yours. It was I think Tony Mishas, who did the imprint. Things, and he did a great show, and it was I think anticipating some of the box sets that I worked on, like the Gene Hackman box set or the Sidney Fury. And again, in my head, all these movies were like my whole life.
Yeah.
And I forget, depending on even where you live, they just weren't part of other people's lives. And that's how I don't have time to stop and think like that. But they made me, it was very sentimental because they're going like this, march or die. I hear it's okay. I'm like, no, it's great. Bite the bullet. I didn't hear. There's not much about this movie. I'm like, no, it was a big hit. Like talking to the screen, and it's like, wow, no, this is just the truth. My life is not shared. My experiences are not the common shared experience anymore. I mean, I think a lot of the kids that I grew up with, they weren't allowed to go to everything that I was. I was very fortunate, but what an education, it really was. Just keep your mind on fire. But then again, now you get to a point where even though they're coming out, it's sort of wistful because the directors aren't here to see, the casts mainly aren't even here. I had to talk to Robert Wagner a couple, months ago on the mountain for imprint. I did a little piece of him. And he's like saying to me, he stopped in the middle and he goes, Paul Berger, okay, disconnected convention. Why not? He says to me, and I kind of closed the video essay with him, and he was saying like, Howard, how long ago was this movie? And I go, that's like 70, 75 years ago. He goes, wow, is there anybody left from the cast or crew besides me? And I go, no, I hate to tell you, I really think you're like the last one. He goes, God, is that true? It's like, wow, I can't believe that. And it's like, wow, wow. It's like you take it for granted because it's really weird. But it's like it's not just from him. You start to wonder all these all these guys, if they're still around, then you think like, all right, they're in their 80s. Well, it's still their 80s. It's not so old anymore to me. I know people in their 80s, and but no,
that's why this home video stuff is so important.
Really is. So it's kind of wistful in a good way, I guess, but it's also like, I'm glad it's there because you can recommend a lot of stuff now. That's at people's fingertips. But I wish we all were able to have a lot of money. So
to bring it full circle, this is Tony Meachus. He's been watching with us all night.
Tony, you're a hero, sir. Thank you.
Tony says, Howard, we must have you on the show sometime soon.
Anytime. It'd be an honor. You guys are great. You just have such a beautiful attitude towards everything. And I think the fact that you stress taking blind buys, blind chances, you have no idea how much respect that I get, because what were we doing as kids? We were just going to everything. Yep. So damn, that makes me, it's the new way of doing that, but there's such a cost, and I understand it's not cheap, but I really, I can't, you're heroes just for the attitudes you have and the fact that and Ryan's definitely an example of this as well. It's definitely a new day, it's not the same as it was 2 years ago, and that I love. So I thank you so much again, everyone who's been here tonight. Wow, that's just great. And I hope other people, they get to see this in archive. It's great too, because I really want to continue hearing from people. I'm on Facebook, so it's the Howard S. Berger. No, I never worked on for KNBFX. No, it's not me. But he's on there too. We have different signifiers. He's Hoops. He's Howard Hoops Berger. I'm Howard S. Berger. So
Howard's
there, if anyone wants to get
and
in touch with
Instagram
me,
are both listed below.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough, because if you guys want to friend me, you're going to have to send like I maxed out. I have like 5,000 friends. I gotta like go back and find who hasn't talked to me in 8 years, and then I'll get rid of them, and then I'll join you. You can join. But I really want to hear from you guys. You guys are great. You are the sacrificial lambs, my friend, of this era, and you have a lot to enjoy. I gotta tell you, just open your mind. Don't get snotty, because you're just going to short sheet your own experience. Keep it positive, keep an open mind, and try everything. Again, Tony, you're great. This is what you've said to people right from the beginning, is, this sounds interesting. If these guys are doing it, there's got to be some value to it. Oh, what a beautiful thought. So that's what films were made for. So thank you so much, everybody. It's really, really great. Make my heart beat.
Well, for everybody that's watching this on replay, for everybody that's listening to the podcast version, Howard wants to hear some comments. So leave some comments, messages below, whether it's on YouTube or, find him on Facebook or Instagram in the description. He wants to hear from you.
I'll be on Instagram. You can get me on Instagram. I'm just getting back to it. Hashtag scared the hell out of me. It was too tiring, but I'm going. I'll be there in more full force in the next month or so. There's a lot. Now there's a lot to talk about. Before it's only just so. But Ryan, also, good brain in your head, my friend. Good job. I'm looking forward to a lot of interesting adventures with you. So welcome everybody to the new blog. It's gonna be the new podcast can be very exciting. So. It'll be very depressing too, but hopefully it'll be, through that cloud we get to the heart of ourselves.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming down the pike, and I really hope people are here for it, because there's some interesting stuff coming.
Thank you, guys. Ryan. Thank you so much.
Howard, you're amazing. I think this is the first time I've ever had anybody on the show that has explained the time that they hugged Lucio Fulci, and for that, you are one of my heroes.
I hug a lot of these guys if I get the chance. I'm very shy, but boy, if I'm put in the position, I'll go right for the. Yeah, eventually I'll tell you my Dennis Hopper story, since you're such a Dennis Hopper fan. Some people are embraced by greatness. I can honestly say I was molested by greatness. So we'll get to that another time.
On that note, that's the hook for the next time Howard's on the show. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next Thursday. Can't wait to chat with everybody again. Thanks, Howard. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, guys. Thanks you again.